Thank you, everybody. Being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order for Monday, August 12th, 2024. As a reminder, this meeting is being broadcast and recorded. Lindsay, I'm going to have you join us at the podium so we can get you out of the room. I'm going to bring the board's attention to your agenda page. Four. We have Lindsay Bergeron before us with two one-day wine and malts for September 28th and August 24th. September 28th is between the hours of 6 and 8:30, and August 24th is from 5 to 8:30. I will entertain a motion to approve both of the one-day wine and malt licenses.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Below that, we have a one-day entertainment license, Rivers Bend, Kurt Bergeron, 35 Dodge Street, for use on Saturday, October 5th, 2024, between the hours of 4:15 and 5:15 p.m. Ceremony music via speaker, mic deficient, bride and groom, amplified singer, during ceremony for a few songs within the confines of the Rivers Bend lawn. I'm assuming this is a wedding, Lindsay?
It is.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for Lindsay? Any concerns? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve this?
I will make a motion to approve, as stated by Ruth, for the one-day entertainment license for...
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain. Lindsay, you're all set? Thank you. Have a good night. Chief Francis, we don't have an appointment until 6:15, so I'm going to ask you to join us at the microphone. Just as an announcement, I'm shifting our agenda around a little bit to try to get some of the people out of the room so that they don't have to stick around through our entire meeting. So Chief Francis, I'm assuming you're here to discuss NEMLIC.
Yes.
Okay, so for the board, I'm going to bring your attention to the continued discussion of NEMLIC. Bear with me.
Oh, take your time.
So as the board will recall, in the past, we had met with Chief Francis and others to discuss the Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council and whether or not we had an interest in signing on with NEMLIC as a resource to the town of Essex. And I know that the chief is passionate about doing so, and I know that we did hear from the union in one letter that says that they are also want to do so.
Correct.
In the meantime, we had requested more information about the withdrawal process if we should choose to terminate that contract in the future. You did provide us, or somebody got back to us. I think
I sent
Chief
that to
DG
Brendan.
got back to us.
Yes.
And we did get all of the information about withdrawal. Does the board have questions for Chief Francis on NEMLIC?
No, I'm glad that we had the opportunity to pull out, and only because you're leaving, so whoever the next chief is, they may not be as passionate as you.
Right.
Or have the resources. So I'm fine as long as we have those abilities.
And
I agree.
And I think that NEMLIC it's a cheap insurance policy. The annual fee is not outrageous. It's something that would be a resource to us. So I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve it. So Chief Francis, we have a letter from you dated 5/8/24 that I'm going to ask if, in part of my motion, if we can change one word from intend to will. Do you have that letter, 5/8/24?
I'm sorry, where is the word?
Second paragraph, it says, as such, if membership is approved, I intend to serve. Can we change intend to will serve? Okay. And then the second thing is that the union letter just says that the Essex Police Local 270 is in support of joining NEMLIC. We had originally talked about having it state that they felt that it would not constitute a change in working conditions. So my motion will be that I would entertain a motion to approve joining NEMLIC with one word change from intend to will on the chief's letter, and to ask the union to just change this letter to say that it will not constitute a change in working conditions.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so do you want me to talk with the union about that, or?
Yes, please, so this vote will be contingent on just getting those two changes back to us. And then you'll be ready to sign it. We'll send it up to the office and we'll get that signed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Francis.
Have a good night.
You as well.
Cold, I'm hot, it's cold, I'm hot. Not DA's law enforcement. Essex.
I'm going to go to other business. I think we can get through a little bit of other business because BZ's report's going to be lengthy. I will entertain a motion to approve the weekly warrant in the amount of $137,503.09.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the Selectmen's July 22nd, 2024 open meeting and executive session.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the Selectmen's August 1st, 2024 open meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to vote to sign the warrant for the September 3rd, 2024 state primary election.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One of the folders in front of you is going to be all of the state voting. The one further up the table, those are all signatures needed on the first 4 pages for these motions.
Yes.
I will entertain a motion to vote to ratify the chairman's signature for a time extension for the fire department's fiscal year 2023 emergency management performance grant.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to vote to ratify the board's vote on August 1st, 2024 to appoint Vicky Cataldo as the acting town clerk from August 10th, 2024 until
The
September
vote was
9th.
until further notice, but now we know.
It's
what the-
actually September
At the time
9th.
you voted it, until September 8th, because on the 9th, the new person takes
Okay,
over.
until further notice with the termination of that status now known to be September 8th, 2024.
So moved.
And-
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I would just add that we're
Aye.
going to use the term temporary town clerk, because that's the term that the state prefers to use,
Okay.
okay?
I'm sorry, temporary what?
Temporary town clerk.
Instead of
temporary.
acting, we're going to
Correct.
change that to
Correct.
temporary. I will entertain a motion to vote to appoint Holly Dash as town clerk effective September 9th, 2024, with her term expiring June 30th, 2027, subject to drug, medical, and quarry testing.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did everybody receive a chart in their packet with the electric rates?
Yes.
Easy, do you want to just quickly
Yep.
review that before I take a motion? So it's this one here.
Yep, and so if you go to the graph, you can see that we've been monitoring this now since June, what's it say there? June 6th of 2023, knowing that we had roughly a year and a half when we started monitoring it until the current contract runs out. The current contract is at 9.34 cents per kilowatt hour, which is a very good rate. We've enjoyed that for 4 years. The lowest that it got during the monitoring period was 11.8 cents, which didn't come anywhere close to the 9.34 cents. So we kept monitoring things. Today, we're at 12, and you saw today's rates. Depending on the term that you choose, we're in the mid-12s. I can't tell whether, what we've been told by Constellation, which is our provider through the Mass Municipal Association's Mun Energy Program. We've been told that, today, they're not really seeing 9s and 10s, they're seeing 11s and 12s. And they don't see that it's going to ever really retreat to 9s and 10s again, okay? Because just the cost of everything has gone up. Yes, it's commodity, but just paying people and such, starting to outpace that. So, you could make a decision to keep waiting, because we have all the way until December, but there's a lot of things going on in the world, and I'm not sure what those are going to do to the pricing. If you look at the pricing that's available, you could choose a 1-year contract and then keep monitoring, or you could choose something that's a little bit more, longer reaching. I guess, the upside to locking in something that's longer right now is that if the rates never return to this, to this level, you've got that rate for a while. But you've got the graph. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the world and whether or not you're going to see anything even close to the 11.8, let alone,
So my questions are, do we have to lock in for X amount of years?
you have to lock in for at least a year at a time with this program.
And, I mean, because I don't think we don't know. And with it becoming into winter, which is more electricity being used, but also more gas, is waiting a few months going to hurt us, gain us? Do you have any sense, considering that you've been doing
Well,
this for a
given
long
the
time?
fact that we have a year and a half monitoring, and
Yeah.
the lowest was 11.8, I'm not optimistic that you're going to see some, because now we're approaching hurricane season, winter.
Right.
Traditionally, the lowest you see it is in August, but that hasn't even rang true this year.
Can I just ask a question? You don't have to really have an answer to this. Do you think that the local solar usage is causing rates to go up?
No, I think it has to do more with the status of global events.
Brendan, it appears that the rate goes up the longer the term, correct?
No, because if you go to the lowest, the
Well, yeah, after.
there
as
is
you go-
some,
Yeah,
'cause
as
it
you
goes
get
to,
further out.
12.4, though, goes to 12.49 if you go longer on the left.
Okay,
So it's
okay.
not necessarily even that. It's people doing predictions on,
Yeah. How does it compare with the interest rate? Is there any relationship?
not to our knowledge. The only thing would be, since the interest rate could be one of the factors that caused inflation,
Right.
if materials and wages that the electricity generator relies on have gone up in response to that, there could be some
Right.
signal there.
Right.
And is that ever going to go back down,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
but again, they're seeing good numbers being in the 11s and 12s now. That's the norm. That's the type of contract that towns are signing off on. And when you have a fixed-rate contract for 4 years, you don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, sometimes you have to go up a big step because things have changed in the world.
Is it your recommendation that we lock in now, or that we keep watching and have me act when that time comes?
Well, but
Or do you think that?
tomorrow, you could find that the rates are in the 14s.
Right. So-
It's a complete, I don't know any more than you do.
Right.
All I can give you is the graph, and
It's
the
a
graph.
gamble.
Yeah, it's a gamble.
So can we say to them, hey, we'd like to lock in, however, we'd like to hold off, and if it goes at 12, stop right there? I mean, like, is there?
Yeah, that's called the strike price, and they'll do that, but if it never gets there, and all of a sudden it goes up and stays up, then you haven't, the only way to get a low rate is to tell them you want that. And if we only had a month of monitoring, great, but we have a year and a half, and
Right, and if you look at the graph, you can see that the troughs are short-lived, and
Yeah.
it looks like we're at least heading into a trough. We're heading into a
Yes.
trough, and maybe we're not bottomed out, but we're getting down there. And the chances are that it will start to go up at some point based on the graph.
well, and
I
if
mean, I
there's
would
another
think
I guess to
geopolitical
me, the
event.
hard part is
Right.
also we're in an election year. So
Yeah.
is things going to change drastically as soon as we know who's the?
And that's the thing, I can't answer those questions. I can only give you what it's
We should
panned out
lock
as.
in, Because
in.
it's not gonna go probably, unless there's a catastrophe, down much below 11. And we're only at 12. If we go in for 5, it's 12.3.7, so.
Or you could go for the year, and then you have a year to watch it again.
Yeah, and watch it go up.
Maybe, right, and maybe you never get back.
Chances are it doesn't go down too much more.
Too
than
much
it is.
more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
I'm in
think
the-
that I would have preferred to see from 2020, when there was an election year, what happened. Because I don't even know whether or not, who the president is makes a difference. I don't know.
I'm going to pause us because we have a 6:15 appointment,
Okay.
and because we have times for scheduled appointments, I'm going to pause us. Rebecca, if you want to join us, or actually, we have a list of people that are joining us from your group tonight, but whoever's going to join us first, if you'd like to join us at the podium and speak about 6 or 8 inches away because we are being broadcast and live recorded, so we need to be able to hear you through the speakers and the people joining us at home. So if you want to go up and just introduce yourself, name and address, and what you're here to represent so that the board can take this all in. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Summonsby. I live at 67 Arbor Street in Wenham, Massachusetts. I'm a volunteer with United Sovereign Americans. I'm not a spokesperson. United Sovereign Americans is a nationwide organization with thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states. Today I come to you as a concerned citizen sharing alarming information about our state's voter database, which was uncovered through thousands of hours of research conducted by our highly qualified and credentialed data team. While the numbers are staggering and somewhat difficult to comprehend, one thing is clear: they don't add up. Just like your checkbook must balance, so must our votes. If you had $10,000 fewer dollars in your bank account than you had deposited, you would certainly want to know what had happened. And if a company had that significant discrepancy in its books, the company would most certainly conduct an audit. In fact, yearly audits are required by law for all public companies. Our audit of the 2022 election, using only official data provided by the state's voter registration system by city and town clerks, shows that the 2022 election may not have been accurate or legally compliant. We are not saying that one candidate won over another or that any election should be overturned. The state's official data from the certified election shows that votes as counted were not all valid and accurate under the law. Tonight we will present you with a resolution demanding an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections, along with a summary of our findings and the laws that apply. We are happy to meet with you to go over this information, including more detail about the specific findings. If you have questions that I cannot answer now, we will commit to getting you the answer in writing from United Sovereign Americans executive team as soon as possible. This data and our request for an investigation will soon be shared with state election officials and law enforcement. It is essential that you, as our representatives, make it clear that these issues must be taken seriously. Today we come to you, our closest elected representatives, for support and action. We're asking that you listen to the resolution, ask questions if you have them, and then vote promptly for its passage. Your action on this resolution will illustrate your dedication and support to the concerns of your constituents and your country. Thank you. Our next 3 speakers will read the resolution in 3 parts, and then our final speaker will conclude our presentation.
Thank you so much, David.
Hi, my name is Jeff Cohen. I live at 18 Cobalt Street in Wilmington, Massachusetts. This is a resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections, quote, and the right of suffrage can be denied by a debasement or dilution of the weight of a citizen's vote just as effectively as by wholly prohibiting the free exercise of the franchise, end quote. Reynolds versus Sims, U.S. Supreme Court, 1964. Whereas it is the duty of our election officials to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion or manipulation. Quote, Congress seeks to guard the election of members of Congress against any possible unfairness by compelling everyone concerned and holding the election to a strict and scrupulous observance of every duty devolved upon him while so engaged. The evil intent consists in disobedience to the law, end quote. In re Coy, U.S. Supreme Court, 1888. Whereas our constitutional representative of government only works when the following 4 tenets of an election are upheld. 1, the voter rolls must be accurate, National Voter Registration Act, 1993. 2, votes counted must be from eligible voters, U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 2. 3, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. 4, there can be no more than 1 in 125,000 ballots in error by the voting system, the Help America Vote Act 2002. Whereas an open source audit of the Massachusetts general election conducted by Massachusetts state citizens has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that violate both federal and state laws, including 751,317 ineligible are on certain registration violations found within the Massachusetts State Voter Roll Database. 265,046 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrants. 87,231 more votes counted than voters who voted in the 2022 general election. No one knows who cast them. 265,027 apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. Maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election in Massachusetts was 19. Certification as defined by law and attestation of accuracy and compliance appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, my name is Richard Tanner, and I live at 16 Commonwealth Ave, North Andover, Massachusetts. I am also a volunteer with United Sovereign Americans and not a spokesman. Whereas these findings trample legal accuracy requirements of the voting system during a federal election, accuracy is defined as the ability of the system to capture and report the specific selections and absence of selections made by a voter without error. Whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted, certification of an election that varies from the law is an abridgment of the civil rights of the citizens, a fraud ab initio, United States versus Throckmorton, U.S. Supreme Court, 1878. Quote, from time immemorial, an election to public office has been, in point of substance, and no more and no less than the expression by the qualified electors of their choice of candidates. End quote. United States versus Classic, United States Supreme Court, 1941. Whereas Massachusetts 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of the guaranteed protection of our natural rights under government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our way of life, and the fabric of these United States. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to provide relief to the people and assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of laws. 1, proof of citizenship, identity and eligibility to register and vote, not anonymous attestation. 2, voter rolls certified accurate and available for public view, review, and challenge 30 days before the start of early voting. Voters added after that date must bring proof of citizenship, identity, and address in person to a qualified official at each polling location. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Hill, and I live in Gloucester. I'm also a volunteer with United Sovereign Americans and not a spokesperson. Number 3, hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency. Where imaging technology is used for tabulation, the security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. 4, systems, machines, security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law for fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. 5, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witnesses after being given full and effective observation rights. Candidates and trained citizens must be allowed immediate access to ballots, ballot images, and cast vote records. 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations, and systems must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote, count to final canvass, including auditability and witness transfer with paper records. 7, a NIST-compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2, must be performed. These audits are to be conducted by qualified, insured, and bonded security, forensics, or financial auditors, not personnel from within the election system. Reconciliation will include the vote count, real physical ballots, adjudication, cast vote records, ballot count, qualified voter count, custody transfer, and all other paper and electronic election systems, including logs. 8, if the total of all unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in the state for those candidates affected unless the issues can be provable, corrected by a manual hand recount and a full review of records. 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration through certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Hello, my name is Brian Curry, and I live in Reading, Massachusetts. I am also a volunteer and not an official spokesperson with the United Sovereign Americans. You just heard a powerfully written resolution outlining massive inaccuracies in our 2022 election, from registration through certification. In it, you heard us ask for meaningful remedies that will proactively protect the validity of the 2024 general election for all Americans. In fact, the resolution cited many U.S. Supreme Court precedents that support the need for such actions. Laws are being ignored. Bottom line, the checkbook is not balancing, and we need certainty. The voting system, which controls our most vitally important right, the right to choose our representatives, is not producing an accurate, trustworthy result. Do you think that these anomalies within our election system, a system which is part of our national security infrastructure, should continue to be ignored? How much is it costing us not to fix the problem? How much is it costing our GDP, our military, our foreign policy, our health, the self-esteem of our children and young people? And how much is it costing our dignity to keep fighting each other? The cost is immeasurable. So I urge you to show your agreement by passing the resolution. Our website showcasing our initiatives nationwide has some extremely informative videos that explain the anomalies and apparent violations of law that are found here in Massachusetts, as well as many other states. The website is unite4freedom.com. That's unite, the number 4, freedom.com. I encourage you to check it out and learn more about our organization. One more time, that's unite, the number 4, freedom.com. What you heard tonight is the culmination of thousands of hours of work by our highly qualified and credentialed volunteer data teams from Massachusetts and across the country. Let's step back for a second and look at the big picture. Large numbers of Americans, including many right here in Massachusetts, have questions about the trustworthiness of our elections. I think we all can agree that we wish this was not the case, but official data shows these concerns are valid, and the law says resolving them is essential in securing our liberty. At the same time, our government representatives at all levels are not being transparent or responsive to what our citizen audits have found. Our right to choose our representatives in legally valid and transparent elections is the foundation upon which our constitutional republic was established. That right has been bravely protected over the last 2.5 centuries by the sacrifices of our brothers, our fathers, our mothers and sisters, and from some of us, our sons and daughters. You on this board tonight have a chance to show everyone who defended American liberty and the citizens you represent that you value them also by passing this resolution demanding a valid general election in 2024. We appreciate your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Oh, great, thank you. Perfect, thank you so much. Thank you all for the presentation. Does the board have questions for any member that presented this evening?
No, this is what I was really looking for.
This is what we were looking for.
I do. I have a question.
To a specific speaker or just anybody that can answer it?
The first speaker, what is the purpose of providing the data to law enforcement in addition to election officials?
Hang on one second for me. If you can go to the podium and talk into the microphone so that Peter's question can be captured and your answer can be heard.
Sure.
Peter, will you just repeat one more time?
Yeah,
please?
what is the purpose of providing the data to the law enforcement people?
with the hope that there'll be some corrective action.
But law enforcement doesn't really, I mean, when it comes to voting, law enforcement's not involved with voting,
They
is it?
enforce, they don't make the decision. Somebody else makes the decision whether it's illegal, legal, whatever. That's why I'm asking.
I guess it's to force the election officials to comply with federal law. All we're asking is for elections to be compliant with existing laws, which are not being followed right now.
My second question is, why are you coming to the town with this now, since many of these regulations and rules have been on the books for decades or even centuries? What precipitated the event now?
Well, we certainly wish it had been sooner. Unfortunately, the Secretary of the Commonwealth did not provide the statewide voter rolls, so we had to go to each individual town, and that's why it took us literally thousands of hours to get this data into a standardized database so that we could query it and find out, extract this information from that database. Otherwise, we would have been done probably very early this year. This group started initially in 2023, and so it took us a while to get going.
I have no questions. I appreciate this. This is great. This is what I wanted to read, so thank you so much. Thank you all for the presentation.
Thank you.
And if I have questions, Rebecca, I have your email, so I'll reach out directly and I'll share the email with the board if they have further questions. All right? Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay and join us. You're welcome to leave, but have a wonderful evening. Mrs. Burnham, would you like to join us at the podium? So we have a 6:30 appointment with Dawn Burnham. Dawn is here to discuss a proposal from the Friends of the Council on Aging to install a bocce/horseshoe court on the old fire station site. So Dawn, I'm going to give you the floor if you can chat 6 or 8 inches away from the microphone so that we can capture you online, and then the board will have questions, I'm
I'm so used
sure.
to having to get close because I'm so short. Okay. I apologize for not being at the last meeting. I had a fall and was on all sorts of medicine for pain, and it slipped my mind. I apologize.
Oh, don't apologize. I'm glad you're
So-
doing better.
I went to Gloucester after making multiple calls to every department at City Hall I could think of to get information about their bocce ball court, and I got shoved from one place to the other. I left messages and never got any return phone calls. So I went to Gloucester and I saw the bocce ball court, and I talked to a couple of older gentlemen who were there. The court is between 18 and 20 feet wide and 40 feet long. Putting to the internet, it can be not necessarily narrower, but can be 30 feet. After having my husband who can walk out distances, there's not room over here at the building.
Okay.
Without a
then-
slant. Without a slant. You can't go this way.
Exactly, we would have to dig, and we aren't going to do that. Then we went up to the Grove, and there really is no place up at the Grove, especially when you're talking senior citizens. There's a lot of roots, and that wouldn't work. We drove up to the house thinking there was a place there, and there really isn't there either. So we came back down, and I have 2 questions which ultimately end up with the DPW, but having made an appointment, I wanted you to know where I'm going next. I have no idea what the status of the tennis courts is, but that might work out very well. It would be something that could be locked up. In Gloucester, they have 1 or 2 days a week where it is just open for senior citizens. The other thing is there is a strip of land between the 2 baseball courts out here, which again is DPW, but that's also something that I'm going to try and talk to them about. We have for our little building, we have an extremely active senior citizen population here in town. One of the programs we have is called Essex. We go to the different restaurants. It's gone from 18 to 50, and we have waiting lists. So I'm very excited as president of the Friends how many people we're getting to engage So while there's a little bit of interest, I'd like to take this and move forward to be able to help them get a little more physical activity.
Right?
So can I ask a question?
I have a whole list.
So I've heard a lot of things about the Grove as far as ideas, and not from you, but from the workers. If it was over at the Grove, would you think that that would, if they cleared, if they did a spot, I mean, I'm talking taking up roots, doing that stuff, do you think that the seniors would be willing to go over there?
Yes, now, we have a contract with CADA, so say there were 6 people who wanted to play bocce ball. They could call the day before, line up a ride, it costs them $4, they'll pick them up at their house, they'll drop them off there, they'll pick them up there and bring them home. I asked the guys what they did with the balls, the guys in Gloucester, and they leave them at the Rose Baker Center, so they are at the senior
So
center.
they're not, because that's what I said, because I've gone to that court a couple of times just to watch, and said, I don't think they leave them there. They
No.
either bring their own or,
They stay at the senior center, and in all reality, you don't need to light it because senior citizens aren't gonna be playing at night.
Right.
Most people aren't gonna be up there playing bocce ball at night. So the balls would stay locked at the, and
will
by the way,
say-
they make lighter balls for senior citizens.
I will say, looking at, I mean, having more exposure, this area would be more exposure, but I think that if we had a location, I'm all for it as far as if and when we find a location.
Great.
Because I'm getting up there, Dawn, I'm gonna be the ones playing.
It's less dangerous than,
Peter, do you have questions?
What's the status of the tennis courts now? I know that there's been a lot of discussion.
There's been a lot of discussion, so I'll give you just a quick tip on that, which is that we have somebody that's looking at resurrecting the fundraising effort and getting quotes as we speak. He has reached out to Town Administrator Zubricki to talk about the state bid and whether we can get materials again, and he's working kind of behind the scenes to see what, it's still active, but I don't know how much effort they're putting in, so it hasn't come before us. So Dawn, I have a whole list of questions because you know that I'm always prepared, and even though it sounds like it's going to be postponed, I think that my questions may be helpful as you're thinking about the process forward. Or maybe they're not. And again, you know who I am. I'm going to ask direct questions, and
That's
some
okay.
of them may be offensive, so don't be offended. I'll start with that. So July of 2023, we did a downtown placemaking plan. It was funded by the Community One Stop for Growth, the Mass Downtown Initiative grant with the Civic Space Collaborative. And we looked at the areas, and we realized that we did the measurements for an authorized court, or whatever you would call it, a legal court.
Yeah,
And we
small one.
realized that we would have to do a small one, that it wouldn't fit. So we kind of knew that, and that's when the idea came out that it should go up at the Grove. It would be a better spot. We know that the Grove is a little bit uneven, but with the volunteer, the professional volunteer that's going on up there, we may actually have space for bocce or horseshoes, because it's kind of part of the bigger picture as we unfold with the buildings, how we're going to level things up there. So you kind of touched on some of my questions by saying that the balls would be locked at the senior center, so it kind of answers some of this. One of my questions was, who wants it? Is it the seniors? Is it the Council on Aging? Is it the Friends? Has the Council on Aging Board weighed in? And then it was going to be, who can use it? Because it's a senior effort, but is it open to the entire town? But if the balls are locked at the senior center, can anybody use it?
people can bring their own balls.
Okay.
The balls that will be locked at the senior center, as I said, the gentleman said they had to work to find balls that weren't too heavy
Okay.
for the seniors.
And I think that that's a great solution, to have the balls at the senior center for seniors that want to use it. They may be of a different grade than the ones that are,
Others can bring their own, yeah.
right, others can
And,
bring
and
their
I,
own.
as I said, there's a sign there that says, I don't think it's like Tuesdays and Thursdays or something, are just for the senior citizens.
Is Gloucester's fenced? I'm trying to remember.
No.
No.
It's
So
right
that's
out
why
open
it
on the
really is-
boulevard.
I mean, I remember when I first saw it at Gloucester, I thought, oh, what a great idea. Because having been in Europe, I would sit for hours watching. The camaraderie between the members playing and, you know, so I really do think it's a great thing for the town.
I agree. Who would maintain the courts?
Well, I haven't gotten that far yet, Ruth.
Okay. Well, it's food for thought, right? So I'm
Right.
putting these out here. There's a lot of things that I don't think you're going to answer tonight, but I'm just putting them out there. So maintenance is going to be one thing. Where the balls were stored, you answered. Another one was, are they heavy and can the seniors carry them? But you answered that. Another one was, has there been a discussion about vandalism or theft? I suppose we hope that that's not going to happen.
We would hope.
My next question was, how much does it cost to install? I'm guessing you're not that far yet. You haven't got quotes. Okay.
It's going to depend on where it goes, because how much prep work you have to do to get the actual cord in is going to affect the price.
So, and the reason I'm asking about the cost, Dawn, I know that being president of the Friends, you obviously have a lot of things that you take care of. One of them is the programs. As you mentioned, you went from the dining from 18 people to 50 people, and I know that the programs are really growing, not just in Essex, but for other members of surrounding communities that love our programs. So I just wrote, our programs are packed, and we wouldn't want to lose programs that are funded by the Friends donations if a lot of money was coming out of the coffers to build the court. So that's why I was asking about the financial implication of building.
And we're not looking at it that would happen.
Okay.
I don't participate in all of the activities that go at the senior center, so I'm not really sure how this conversation got generated. I just, as the president, when it comes before me, I have been in the town hall and know who to talk to, so I kind of said, I'll check into it, rather than someone else trying to muddle through.
And Ruth, I just want to add, I mean, we should probably decide, is it, would they be looking, I would think you'd want two, so that a good group of people could actually play. 12 people, 4 on each team or 3 on each team, and you wouldn't just have to sit there with one cord.
I equate, if we can do this, when you see the ads and there's little old men and little old ladies playing chess in the park, that kind of thing, where it's where they go, once or twice a week to meet. That's the highlight of their week.
And I guess the question would then come up, would you want 2 bocce courts? Would you want 1 bocce, 1 horseshoe? Would you want 2 bocce to start with and a horseshoe down the road? Would you want to keep horseshoe up the Grove? So those are all the things I think we need to consider as this unfolds.
And in answer to your programming, the Friends do support a lot of the programs for the seniors, but the Council on Aging also has a gift fund, and they have different funds that also support a lot of the programming.
Perfect. I know that the Friends are very generous. I go to the Council on Aging meetings, and at the meetings, they always announce, this was from the Friends, this was from the Friends. And in listening to that, thinking about the finances of the
Awesome
town,
group.
it's an unbelievable group, and I just don't want to see
town,
programs hurt.
The town itself has been very generous with us, which is wonderful, because once a year, we send out a mailing to every single citizen in town, and they're very generous.
Wonderful.
Makes everything available
So I
to
do think it's just more planning, more thinking. Can a bocce court have a spike put into it? I don't know,
I don't know how that would work, but
I
we
don't
certainly
either.
can look into it. The ones over in Gloucester are not sand. A lot of times it's grass or sand. It's the AstroTurf.
Okay. I think the idea, the tennis court idea is a great idea. I know that there was some conversation that if the courts go away, would it turn into additional boat parking? So that will all fall on the shoulders of the DPW, so I'm sure they'll give you feedback. But thank you so much for coming and
Okay.
letting us be part of the conversation.
Dawn, do
Thank you,
have
Dawn.
a time frame at all?
No, this is,
Open-ended?
this is ground level, like first time really talking about it in public. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Have a good night.
Do we not want Dawn to stick around for this next subject? The bus? Like,
Dawn's not on the Council on Aging anymore. So are you aware of the CADA bus conversation, or? No.
okay.
Okay. Yes. Who's our CADA rep?
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Dawn. Have a good night. Again, is it for the board? Do you want to come to the podium or just us?
It's for you guys and maybe for him. It did come up at my meeting also, which has nothing to do with the seniors, but they were questioning why there isn't a sign at the building where the old hand tub is, saying what it is.
Why there isn't a sign?
You know, we have the signs all around town for the walking
She can't hear.
Shouldn't there be one there that says that it's the old handicap, so when people look at the building, they would understand a little bit more of the history?
That would fall under the Veterans Firemen's Association.
That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Have a good night.
Do you want to repeat that, because she didn't get that on recording?
Dawn's question was why there's not a plaque or something identifying the building at 24 Martin Street that's currently holding the old antique pumper inside the building. The answer from Deputy Chief Perrine was that that falls under the purview of the Fire Veterans Association. That was the answer. Thank you, sir. The only people remaining in the room look to be our Essex Police Department members. So I think in light of the fact that I've already skipped all around this agenda, we are going to just go straight to the conversation about the chief so that we can try to get these gentlemen back to work or dinner. Bear with me one second. I need to find some documents. So under other business, we have an item that says continued discussion with respect to the chief of police hiring process. So as we know, as we've been meeting, Chief Francis has announced that he's retiring on June 30th of 2025, and we've been slowly going through the process of looking at what does that look like. Are we going to talk about, we did vote unanimously not to do an assessment center, so we know that the process is just moving forward where the town administrator is going to be going through the process with guidance from the board. We've been putting ideas to paper. We have the list in front of us. I think everybody probably got the newest list with some red line. Yes, that one there, Alva, and Peter, you're getting to it as well. So a couple of things that we need to address, and I know you guys both mentioned that we have plenty of time, but we're in August, and we don't really have a lot of time. Fall town meeting is around the corner. We have things on our agenda to talk about fall town meeting. We need to talk about 97 versus 97A. And so two things I want to address tonight. The first one is going to be if we want to consider looking at this for internal candidates first or only, and to see if we have a good fit within our department. Essex is a very unique place, and I think it's going to take a special person to do the job. And I think that we do have candidates that potentially are interested. We have 3 people in the room with us that I know 2 of the sergeants have continuously been coming to these meetings to see how this unfolds. So I guess the first question that we need to consider is whether or not we want to start with an internal process, or if we want to not just do internal and we want to do just open it up for anybody to apply, which would include certainly members within the department. But I think that given that Essex is so unique, I created a list of pros and cons, and I'm going to go over those for food for thought so that you guys can think about these as you determine if we want to stay internal. So my pros are knowing the systems, the culture, the management style, day-to-day operations, knowledge of the department. I think that it bolsters morale. It would allow for some movement within. There's a level of trust. Knowing how other town departments work. The police department has an intimate knowledge of how the DPW works, especially on details, how the fire department works, especially on, obviously fire calls, but a lot of medicals. The fire department, or the police department, is obviously a full-time department, and more often than not, they are on our medicals much faster than our fire department can get there, delivering aid, so that's huge. Community policing is a huge one for me. Our police officers know our residents. They know the town. They know the people. They know the kids. They see them every day. Having a chief come in from the outside that hasn't been working here in Essex doesn't give them that leg up. So I think that's an important one. They understand our financial constraints because they hear me talk about them at every single meeting. There would be probably a huge ability for employee retention so that we get to retain the awesome officers we have and we don't end up with this police reform and post-disaster that has unfolded before us. I think it would create a positive work environment. There is a company culture that would be embraced. The familiarity of having a chief that's been promoted from within, it would reduce costs and it would probably increase motivation. Those are my pros. My cons are, and this con is huge, and it probably overshadows a lot of those pros. And it's the one thing that I've preached, not necessarily to the board, but just kind of in general. The biggest con I have is the ability to step away from the union with those that they're their peers, they're their friends, they're their colleagues. And now they have to supervise them. And you have to remove one hat and put on a very different hat. And you have to have a special kind of personality to be able to do that. So that's my biggest con, and it's a tough one. I guess I wrote as a con, we could end up with a chief that does not understand the uniqueness of Essex, but that was also a pro, that we, are
Well, and
unique.
I would say that many of your pros were also cons. And having been through many of interviewing processes and trying to decide, it goes either way. As far as if we're going through the process of interviewing people, I would rather interview both and then be able to say, wow, so-and-so internally is still the best person for this job, or, oh my God, this person from the outside meets what we need. We could get somebody who's from another unique town, whether in New Hampshire or Massachusetts, that does know all of those same uniqueness, because although we'd like to think that we stand alone as Essex, cute little town, there's other towns in the state and in the New England that is very similar. So I don't want to lean either way. I would much rather say that when we come to a decision, we've picked the best person, regardless if they're somebody internal or somebody from outside. That's my
I
viewpoint.
kind of agree. I think that the pros and cons that you mentioned are all part of the evaluation criteria. So explain to me how it works. If we do internal, we have to exhaust it before we go outside? Is that what you're saying?
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
That's one approach you could take.
Yeah.
Or you could just say, well, we're having, internal and external apply at the same time, and you'll interview some of both.
Can we interview internally first and then go outside if we decide? Is that what we're thinking about right now?
Can do that.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what's,
Even if we really like an internal candidate, we'll still go outside potentially.
so that's what Al was saying, is basically, we don't want to go just internal. She wants to go, open it up to any candidate that wants to apply.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost us money to open it up. I think it also, it's like anything. If you are constantly doing the same thing all the time, that doesn't mean it's the right thing. You could bring somebody in and brings an idea to the table that you never even thought of.
That's the thing.
And that might not be, we still could go with an internal person and say, hey, but this person over here, we like this idea. That's the type of thing that I just want to bring. I think that internally, they do have an upper hand because they do know the town. They do know where some of our concerns are as a select board. But I want the right person to rise to the top, and I also want to show to the town that we're not just picking somebody because they've been on our force for over 10 years.
Yeah, I think that the institutional knowledge is extremely important, but also bringing new ideas is also extremely important. So, yeah, I kind of agree.
So that will be our process forward. We're going to post it for all applicants, internal and external, and we'll start that interview process. So the second thing that I want to cover this evening, Brendan, we were all privy to an email that talked about the ability to do the interview process, and that we can't do this in executive session, as we can't bring in every candidate and all three of us meet as a meeting in executive session. It has to be the town administrator, one board of select member, and we could potentially have others, but we do need to talk about who that's going to be. We need a representative from this board to do it. Very seldom do I nominate myself. I usually say to the board, who wants to do it? And then when nobody volunteers, I generally take it as the chair. This is an instance where I actually want to nominate myself. I have been on the board for a little over 5 years. I have been through one chief contract. I have negotiated with the union through one union contract negotiation a couple of years ago, and I do have a pretty good working knowledge of the police department in some of what we want to see from the applicants. So I feel that I'm the most qualified candidate.
I agree, I second that.
I'm on the fence.
Okay.
I'm on the fence because, not that I want it, however, I also don't want you to be pointed at as, oh, Ruthie just pushed it through. I want to make sure that we're doing it properly. I don't know what legally you can do as far as whether you can write a report after you do interviews so that we are basically at the same page as you and be able to say, I don't like this. Because there may be something that we hear that you didn't hear, or didn't pay attention to.
Well, and I think the process that would unfold is that we would take in, let's say that we have 20 applicants. If I were the person to be the representative, Town Administrator Zubricki and I would sit down with the 20 applications. I'm sure we would give them all an interview them all, and probably come down to your top 3 or 5 choices, at which point we would.
So when you get to those 3 or 5 choices, can you share those resumes with us so that we can ask questions? To you, not to them, to you, to be able to have,
Well, at
present.
that point, we would be able to go into executive session. We're just narrowing down the field of applicants,
Okay, we would.
right?
No, the board, no. The
Not at
three-
any point? I thought we
No,
could
because
when we get to the
the
final.
executive session is allowed for preliminary screening of applicants. If somebody gets to the next level, that's all open session after that. So that's a good question, Alva. If there were 20, and then the preliminary screening committee comes up with a list of 5 or 6, how much of that information about why somebody didn't make that list could be shared? I can get more information on that.
I mean, I don't want to go through the whole 20, but if you got down to 10 and you said, here's 10, and him and I go and give you 5, and they're the same 5, or they're the same 5s that you've picked, you know what I mean? It's like giving you, or if we can just say, if you go with this one, this is a question I want to know because I'm confused about this in his resume. That's.
Well, the whole board would be able to see the resumes and the letters of interest, and they could send them back to you with all of their comments as part of the process.
Yes, but if you're going to deliberate over them, that's going to have to be in public.
No, I don't want us to
Just
deliberate. I
ask the
want
question.
you two to be able to go,
Ask these questions.
this is a person that we were going to have, and Alva does have a question about here. It's that type of thing.
So questions can all be funneled through you so that we're not communicating
I hope
outside of a
there's not
meeting.
20, I just hope.
So if we can find that out.
Yeah, I will verify that. So, in other words, can the whole board see everything that came in all along, and then ask questions back
For you to ask.
to me?
Yeah.
To you, right. I mean, because you're going to get, say you get even 15. You're going to narrow that down to who you really want to interview based on, I mean, we've been doing interviews now for, my year and a half here, and I'm sure longer than for you guys. But I do want to make sure that it doesn't come across that the chair is doing the decision-making. It's the whole committee that's looking at the resumes and being able to ask questions.
I think that's a fair ask. And I also think,
And I'm very firmly a person who says, if you ask candidate A, you ask candidate A, B, C, D, the same question.
which is why we have the guidance that now has, redlined and we keep adding to it. And we can continue to add to it till the very last minute.
Right.
But I think that's exactly why. If you guys have more, keep adding. I mean, I see that we've added since the last meeting. So I think that's fair.
So the only question I do have additional is, did I miss it? Oh, I did miss it. Look at that, damn it. How did I miss that? Right here. Never mind. Disregard.
So
Disregard.
I'll move forward with getting the information about the mechanics of it and what you can say, what you can share, what you can't say, what you can't share. And then at the next meeting, maybe you can come up with, we'll work on a schedule for rolling this out.
I do want to also point out to the board that Town Administrator Zubricki has been through 2 chief hiring processes. So I understand, I'm the board, and you. Also, Alva, let's be clear that all fingers point to me. Do we all have Facebook? Even when the board makes a decision, right, exactly. I'm going to be the bad guy no matter what, but that's okay. So do you want to delay my nomination of myself to be the representative?
No, I'm fine with that, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
As
so-
long as we have, again, I just don't want it to be in a closet where you make a decision and then the board has to be okay with that. I want it to be that we have the right to look at the resumes.
Absolutely.
And then if we have glaring questions, we can ask BZ and it can be disseminated. I just want to feel like
You're part of the process.
it's not only that the
not just
community
you,
knows
yeah.
we're part of the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if we go with an outside person, it's gonna upset some, and if we go with an inside person, it might upset others. So that's where I just wanna make sure that this was a select board involvement.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, given that this is part of the chief hiring process, I'm going to entertain a motion to appoint myself as the Board of Select representative that is going to work with the town administrator on the chief hiring process.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Okay. Is there anything else on my agenda that you gentlemen are here for this evening? No. Okay. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Be safe.
So do you want to go back to the electrical discussion?
Yes, please.
So, Peter, I don't know if do you have the one that I just brought tonight? Because they gave us new pricing today.
Oh, I don't know.
No,
It should have,
It
Pam,
was in
did
the handouts.
wait, I did, hold on,
Yeah, there were 4 pages that
group
you
of
got.
handouts that came just for the meeting tonight.
this one.
And you could, if you look at the ones that you got in your meeting packages, all right, that was on Friday. Today, they went up a little bit, just over the weekend.
Right.
I'll show you, look. These are all in the 12.3s, and today's are all in the 12.4s.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It already started to go up.
Change from that.
So our options are, we could wait, we could keep watching it until December, or we can just make a decision tonight to go with the rate that is the latest and go with it.
And for how
long?
many years,
Yeah,
right?
I would say, so, it's a crapshoot, you know?
It's a crapshoot. Such a
I would say, you know, if we feel comfortable with a rate of 12, even if it goes down more,
I just don't feel like anything's going down.
I don't either.
I think that the cost of living is going up and everything's going up with it. Inflation, we're about to have an
Although, you know,
election.
it's like, oil and electricity do this. you know,
Right.
All the time.
And our rep said you had that in your packages. In 2022, the prices were in the 18s.
Right.
Right.
So it did come down again, but that was probably a very high. She tells you that she doesn't see 9s and 10s coming back.
Well, I agree, 9s and 10s are not coming back, there's too many things that we're paying for these
And we're
days.
getting, you know, I mean, how much lower will it
Do
really
we
go?
want to do 4 or 5 years? I don't know that I want to do that.
No, I was thinking locking in at 12 cents and doing 2 years. That was kind of what was in my
I
head.
was thinking 3.
You were thinking 3.
I don't know.
3, 2, 3, or 4, 5, 1.
All right, let's go with 2.5, no, I'm just kidding.
I can be sold on 2 or 3.
I can too.
I would prefer 2.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm good with
so
that.
I'm going to entertain a motion.
And because of the whole, I do think that we need to look at things, solar's coming in, and electrical rates are gonna go up if more people are using solar. That's just my feeling. You still have to pay for these things.
So I'm going to entertain a motion to lock in at, do we say tomorrow's rate? Because it's
It could change
beyond-
again, and it would be, yeah, unless there's a
unless it's
crazy
big
spike. Right.
Okay, so we're going
So
to
at
leave
your
this
discretion.
At my discretion, okay. So I'm going to entertain a motion to allow the chairman to lock in a rate with our electric company when we know that the rate is favorable at about 12% unless it goes lower for a 2-year contract.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to consider the approval of an additional change order with respect to the water filtration plant improvement project.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend that you table that because they did not get us what you signed earlier,
just
Ruth,
gonna say I signed
were
Old
Pass
approved
votes of the
ones.
board.
Okay, never mind.
This would be change order number 7, And apparently, when they were working on rehabilitating, I think it was the clear well, the contract showed if you do this, this, and this, that's the scope of work. But apparently, when they got into it, there are some
There's more
wrinkles.
stuff, yeah.
And we thought we might have more information and numbers for tonight, but we don't. So that'll come back at the next meeting.
Okay, and then I'm just going to wrap up the other business, which we received a letter from a resident concerning a request to consider the neighborhood effects of a recently implemented CADA bus route. So everybody had received the first email dated back to July 30 from a concerned resident on Winthrop Street, and then just prior to our meeting this evening, we received 2 more. Did the board have an opportunity to read those other 2 emails? Okay. Perfect.
So I can give you
So-
a little history on this.
Go ahead.
The board may remember that the town used to pay the MBTA about $22,000 a year as an assessment against our local aid, even though there is 0 MBTA service in our town. We had that reallocated to CADA, and CADA came up with some one-off rides for medicals and such for the senior population. And they've also tried to do whatever they could to provide some service in Essex, because we always had the CADA bus turning around at the Gloucester-Essex line.
Yeah.
So now they bring in a CADA bus that goes as far as Western Ave and then loops back around. I think it either goes in and loops around and comes out Western, or one way or the other, but it uses Winthrop Street to make that loop. And that was something that they asked whether they could do. We said, sure, let's try it. And we hadn't heard much about it until now, because now it's implemented. I would say that the
How long
important...
has it been happening? Did it just start?
It's been about a month, maybe
Yeah.
maybe 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I guess they chose a large bus, which is the biggest concern of the people there.
Yeah.
I don't know that you want to back away from providing the service, because it goes right by the entrance to the elderly housing.
Yeah.
And then Brook Street.
So I have a recommendation that I think can solve this. I think that it going up Winthrop Street is terrible for all of the reasons outlined in this letter. If it were a small van, like a 10-passenger van, it wouldn't be so bad. But a big bus, so my recommendation is, instead of them coming down 133, going left on Martin, and then right up Winthrop, and then they loop back to Western because they want to get their bus aimed back toward Gloucester. What if they come down Martin anyway that they're doing? What if they go left into Shepherd Memorial, go around the parking lot to get their bus redirected back toward Main Street, and put a little bus stop, like a little bus stop sign in front of the hand pumper shed where the lines are painted, and the bus can stop there. It's kind of a centralized location. It's a municipal lot. It's where people can park and congregate, so you can park and catch the bus, go to Gloucester, and then everybody can walk down from the senior housing and catch the bus, Council on Aging, catch the bus, and then it's not on a little side street.
So,
It's a
my
bit of a
my
walk
feeling
in
is,
a little
Essex is a little side street everywhere. So, number 1. Number 2, I think this is a great opportunity for those people who might need it. The senior center, the senior Chabaco Terrace, and also Brook Street. There could be people who work and are going into Gloucester to work, or vice versa, people from Gloucester who are working here in town. Although that's a great idea, but let's find out if it's really bad. Like, my feeling is, I'm sorry, so the Amazon bus trailer can go running up and down that street and can park on the side anytime, and that's not a danger to the kids? Come on. It's a vehicle.
Well, it's
They
consistent.
need that size vehicle.
Well, that's a question.
Well, do we have the ability to negotiate that, I guess is the
Yeah.
question.
That would be my
We would
say.
I would have to reach out to, I would go through our rep, and I would also go through the executive director, and I would be doing this in a week's time, because I'm not going to be around this week.
Right.
The other municipal property that I thought, which is not it's not my preference, but the other municipal property that we own, is that the bus could come through town. Keep in mind that the bus will stop at if you're on the bus and you're coming from Gloucester and you say you want to stop at
Right.
Harlow Street, it stops. If you want to stop at Lufkin, it stops. So you can have the bus stop anywhere.
Right.
So my other recommendation was that it could continue up 133, get to the fire station, go in the upper lot, so not the fired vehicle lot, but the other lot where you park
Parking
to
area,
vote.
yeah.
And they could go in there, turn around, and swing its way back up 133 toward Amick, toward Gloucester, and then people could stop the bus. Again, at the corner of Western, you could stop it at the corner of Martin. So you're still keeping the big bus on a major road.
So my first thing would be to see if we can get a smaller bus. I can't imagine that there's that many people who are doing it. I would like to see more people doing it. If we could get people that could commute back and forth, because that's one of our things. We have, you know, places, whether it's restaurants or businesses, they can't get here if they don't have a car.
Right.
And this is, to me, an ideal thing that we can bring people in. I mean, talking to the terrace, is there anybody using it? You know, would there be another spot?
So I think
Coming
we,
down Pickering
Might
and
be
then
better.
back out? You
we
know, like,
probably need to audit CADA in the sense of just ask the questions. How many people are using it? What days of the week?
Where are they getting
where are they
on?
getting on? Where are they getting off?
I know the first time I saw it when they stopped, because I was sitting waiting for somebody over at the Shays Old parking lot, waiting for somebody to cross the street. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, the bus pulled up and I thought, what a great idea. That's a great idea. And I think I don't think I saw it usage. The bus driver went out and got coffee and I thought, oh, maybe he's just getting coffee. Maybe the CADA bus isn't coming here. So, and then I saw it on Facebook. So I do think, I have a hard time with our streets in town thinking that they're private roads and nobody should be going up and down them. If you're allowing an Amazon van truck, these people, I mean, I sit and watch in my driveway thinking, holy moly. They're all over the place. And yet that's okay, yet here's something that's giving people an opportunity to get on a bus and get somewhere.
Don't have the resources.
That don't have the resources.
Well, and I think the board seems in favor of keeping the CADA bus. I don't think anyone wants to see the bus go away. I think it's just, can we redirect where it goes? Which roads? I mean, have you
they
seen
decide
They
what-
pick it. I mean, you would think that they picked it for a reason.
Yeah, how do they decide which vehicle?
which vehicle to use? I think
Maybe
that,
it's the only one that they have
That I
available.
don't know. I mean, they asked us about can we try the loop? And we said, sure, try the loop. We didn't know that
Say which
people were going to
vehicle.
react in that way.
Yeah.
But we weren't told at the time specifically what size of vehicle was going to come.
Maybe we can request that.
So for your next meeting, I can find out, are there other options for the size of the vehicle? How many people are using it? Where are the most common spots where people are getting off and on?
Yeah. No, I
And
think
then
that's important.
continue the
and
discussion.
then we'll continue the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, Pam.
And,
Okay.
and do we reach out to anybody at the senior, what's it called? The Essex Housing Authority or even,
I can reach out to both.
I mean, I'm just wondering, was there a reason that they picked these because somebody said, hey, it would be great if we had this here?
Well, I think if we get the information, the feedback of how many people are using it, on which schedule, and where are the stops, because the bus driver's going to know, oh, when I'm doing this route, I'm stopping at Harlow or Lufkin or
Because I'm
wherever.
also concerned when school starts back,
gonna
is
be
the school
different
gonna be
crowd.
complaining because here's this big bus turning around on it's at 7:30 in the morning, kids could be walking. And so we do want to understand.
There's sidewalks on Story Street and on Winthrop Street,
Yeah, there's sidewalks. And I do know it's used, but again, it is a public road. And that bus has every right to be on that public road.
Sure.
But let's find out, can we have the smaller bus? Can we, what?
Yeah, I'm going to get a lot more information before you all three make a decision on
Perfect.
So
what
we'll
should
bring it
happen.
back.
Thank you.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the appointments as listed on page 2, 3, and 4 of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to approve the remaining one-day wine and malt licenses for Woodman's as well as the Essex County Greenbelt.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Just a reminder that our next regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting will take place on Monday, August 26th, 2024, at 6 PM here, third floor auditorium of the Town Hall at 30 Martin Street. And now, without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Town Administrator Zubricki.
Do you want to do other items? Because I have just a couple things
Sure.
to mention. So this would be for future discussion, but I got a call from Lieutenant Matthew Coffin. He is the Public Affairs Officer on the USS, it's an LHD Navy ship that is now known as the Essex. I think it's the 6th or 7th Essex, but the original Essex was a sailing ship, and the original bell is sitting over in the archives. He would like to send a detail of sailors to Essex to have like a public event. Cool. Some of the things that they'd like to do, they could get involved with the local high school. They could do community service. They could get involved with the veterans. They could come to a selectmen's meeting, and they could get involved with the shipbuilding museum. And everything's on the table, and they'd probably come out for a few days. And I mentioned, and I said, well, let me at least ask the selectmen if they have general interest in it, and then I could come back to you with more specifics.
Sure.
I think it's
that'd be
great.
lovely.
And
Yeah.
you've talked to the shipbuilding museum, or you will?
I will.
See, yeah, I think that would be a
Yeah,
nice
no,
fit.
and then also with both schools, not only Essex schools, but Manchester Essex schools, but also the regional, Essex Tech.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Great, so I'll keep working on that.
That may come back to us with them needing a list of ideas that we could probably come up with.
Yep. And then,
Do you know if they already reached out to the shipbuilders, or?
no, I suggested that it could be a possibility, and they're very open to it. Then I want to see whether the board wants to bring this to a future meeting. We had someone who got a parking ticket on Canomo. There is a sign, I sent pictures out earlier today, but there is a sign that says, it has an arrow on it, and it says loading and unloading with the arrow pointing 3 different spaces and then the seawall, okay? No parking in this area. Somebody got a ticket because they parked not in the space that's right in front of the sign, but in one of the other 2 spaces. So I went out there today, and it was very clear to me that you look at the sign and you can tell it's everything between here and the seawall. There's 3 spaces. There was actually somebody in one of the spaces taking in the scenery, and I said, what do you think? And the guy says, yeah, I know what that means. In fact, I'm not, he didn't get out of his car, but he's like, I'm not in the right place right now. So do you want to go look at it? And
I
then-
don't think we
I
need
can
to.
tell you I had personal experience, because I didn't know that the sign was there, and I pulled in one day, and I was gonna be taking a walk, and I went, God damn, I gotta move over. Now, it was 6:30 in the morning, so there was no problem, but so I already know it's there. Loading and unloading just means to me that it's like a 15-minute type of thing, so.
Yeah, because people like to go down to the beach or maybe unload stuff for their boat, and then they move the vehicle somewhere else.
I think it's pretty clear.
I think it is, that's my opinion. I just didn't know whether, because this person is asking whether the selectmen want to look at it, and it's been there for years.
I have no interest in looking at
Did the
that.
sign get improved, though? Because I don't remember it being there before. I always
That-
parked in those first 3
That sign's been
spots.
there for years now.
Been there for
What
years.
was added is the carry and carry out sign
Maybe that's why I noticed it, because that's.
underneath it.
There are a lot, too.
Yeah, I would park there a lot, like I said, at 6:30 in the morning to walk around. But, yeah, no, I think
Right,
that
and it's not to debate the sign right now, it's whether or not you think you want to take it up at a meeting or not.
No,
I don't
I
think
do
we
not.
need to.
I do
Okay.
not.
I
think it is
think
what
that
it
we
is.
can't start undermining the police department's authority to issue parking tickets.
Okay, so now move into the report. So there was an Economic Development Committee meeting on August 1st. There were, a number of updates, the different projects that the Economic Development Committee is trying to champion. One question that was raised that they wanted to refer to the selectmen was this idea of automated parking kiosks. There was an idea in the past that the ramp, the town landing ramp, could be opened up to non-residents, and they could be charged by paying a kiosk. But that was before the board made a decision to say, no, the ramp is for residents only. So I don't know that the board has an appetite to start looking at the parking kiosk for the town landing, given the fact that it's residents that are using it, only residents that are using it.
We just looked at that a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
did.
I don't think we need to.
I personally am very much for at least looking and investigating. My feeling is Canomo Point, where we have the non-resident parking out, why not get a few dollars to help compensate? My feeling is, why not charge? If somebody out of town, I'm telling you, out of towners are using our boat ramp, okay? We just should know that. So why not charge them? I just feel that we should at least, maybe not this year, but maybe we should set it aside for some point. We should be looking at, are there other revenues, other streams we can collect revenue?
So I can answer a lot of these things. So let's go to the parking kiosk. We started looking at that in 2019 when I became a select board member, and I was passionate about wanting parking kiosks. And I did all of the research, and back then, so now we're talking 5 years ago, they were $7,595 per kiosk. And we actually had the finance committee do an analysis of that to talk about the recuperation of the funds to spend. We talked to the chief of police about how it would help the department to actually issue tickets and things like that. The issue, it all seemed great, and it seemed like a great path forward. Where it fell apart was when we got the contract and we started reading about it. So in order to have these kiosks, they need to be Wi-Fi enabled. So now you're paying for, whether it's Verizon or whoever.
Cellular, yeah,
or
cellular.
Cellular,
Yeah.
really connected. So now you're paying a cellular bill to do that. If somebody hits it, the maintenance is on the town, so we have to replace it at the cost of $7,500 or just repair it. That's all outsourced to an outside company. The company that you buy them from does offer their service technicians, and it was astronomical, the hourly rate they charge you to and from. So we got to the point where we said the cost-benefit analysis of when you would recover the money was not during the tourist season of the summer, it was years. The other issue was kind of not wanting to embrace tourism to come to town. I know that people that are coming into town for dinner will pay. I mean, people go to Beverly and they park on Cabot and they pay the kiosks. But are we trying to not encourage people? We're already hearing that the restaurants are closing and there's nobody on the causeway. Do we want to be more restrictive by charging them a fee? In certain areas, do I think it could be beneficial? Sure. The boat ramp? No. And then only because the boat ramp, as it sits, has like 8 or 9 parking spots, and you want those for your residents, the people that pay astronomical taxes, you want them to be there.
I'm thinking more in the parking.
In the parking lot.
I'm thinking people that come in, because I can put my kayak in at Essex, and yes, I have to walk a half a mile, but that's okay. It's a beautiful half a mile to walk. I just want us, it's not just, it's not just the police, it's our roads that need repairing, it's our DPW that needs to go and have more parks to clean up, and it's all of those things. So ideally, you're right, a machine. I'd rather an app on your phone so that somebody, you put a sign up that says, go to this app and fill it in, because that way you're not paying for a piece of equipment that could get broken. If there's something else out there, I would like to be able, I'm not trying to get people not to come here, but why are we willing to go to Gloucester and pay $50 to go into a beach or $45 to go into a beach?
Because we don't have one in Essex.
Right, exactly.
Trustees about that.
And then just to go back to the launching of the boat, when you're saying, well, people are illegally launching anyway, I agree with you, and I see it, and it drives me crazy. The only enforcement we have for that is the police department, and we have 2 people on the shift. And they,
I know what happens.
but from a financial point of view, so that it makes sense, when the ramp was open to everybody, we collected $20 per car to launch. Annually, we collected $8,000 to use the ramp. It cost us $5,300. So we netted about $3,000 a year. We had to employ the person, we had to pay them, cut them a check. They stood there all day. It just, the $3,000 that we gained a year didn't have value, and then our residents were angry. They were waiting
Mind
to,
even having an out-of-town, we say 15, 20, 100, whatever, out-of-town license, where you come and get a ticket, I mean, you get a sticker to put on your vehicle to launch your boat. That's, that way, we know out-of-towners are doing it. We know that hey, wouldn't somebody in Hamilton who has a boat rather just pay $150, $200 to Essex and know that they can launch at the town landing and they've got this on there?
But then, don't you feel like you're taking that business away from the marinas? Because
Still doing it. The people are doing it.
Well, they might not be if it's costing
Well,
them that much.
well, if you open it to a sticker and a lot of people say, I want to do that, then you might have many people. There were many people when it was, even when they paid
Yeah.
$20.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it might be some people doing it anyway, but if you open it up, that's legitimizing it, right?
You get a lot
And
more.
you're going to go back to the
know.
traffic that you had before. Because
And-
I think a lot of people would pay $100, but
well, and I
it
also
depends on
think,
what you want for your residents.
and if, I mean, it's not on the agenda, so we're not talking about opening it up, but I think that if we were to open it up and we were gonna launch, we wouldn't be $20 anymore. I mean, all of the marinas have increased their launching fee. I know that myself, I was launching last summer at Perkins, and I was paying $40, and I think that's gone up again. So we wouldn't be $20, because we're not gonna just open it up and employ somebody to stand there.
I don't want us also to be, so it was the fact that, oh, anybody could launch it, it's free. And now we're saying you can't park here. But I'm hearing people say, well, just park in my driveway, don't worry about it, just park in my driveway. And that to me is like, well, you're taking food out of your own children's mouth.
Right.
But I've learned to just go la, 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 la. It was easier. So I just want us to come up with some solution that helps the town by raising some money.
But we don't want it to cost money, and it's approaching that, unless it's a really high number. As Brendan says, you're legitimizing the whole process, and if you're cheaper than anybody around, which hopefully we wouldn't be, you're gonna get everybody there. And then the residents aren't going to have places to park, and that's the biggest issue.
That was the issue. is that
Parking was the issue.
Parking was the issue, is that our residents were angry that they had nowhere to park because out-of-towners are willing to spend, even if we made it $50, they will spend $50,
Yeah,
but we only have so many parking spots.
And those are the types of things I just want us to think about. Is it something that you open up monthly? Or is it something that I'm walking by the back parking, and there's three vehicles there with trailers. Well, I mean, not to say the town lots aren't full, I mean, that might be full, but we have space at this point.
So if we want it, if the board feels that they want to open it up to non-residents, then we need to put it on the agenda, because we need to circulate that conversation and have people give
I mean, it
input.
doesn't have to be now, it can be next spring, before the next season, but I mean, I do think that we should be looking at means of revenue generating that also appeases to people, because there are people.
I like the revenue generating point. What I'm going to say is, as a boat owner, and Peter, you use a boat. So for me, as an Essex taxpayer and a boat owner, it was frustrating to have non-residents at the ramp. And actually, it would get confrontational, because you would say, like, you can't. Unfortunately, they would launch their boat with their family, and the husband or the wife would sit in the boat with the children tied to our dock, and then they would drive to the lot, park behind the tennis court, and have to walk back. But it hindered the ability to launch other boats. So you would just bottleneck, and no one could leave. And you'd say, you need to move the boat, slide it down the ramp. And they're like, I can't move it. I have 3 kids without life jackets on. So it became a problem. Now, for my husband and I, we have a little aluminum boat. We just pull down beside
I don't
him.
think it's really changed.
I think it's better, but I just think that it bottlenecks and it gets difficult. So as a boat owner, I wouldn't want to open it up.
I'd like to ask the person who lives across the street and has parties out on his backyard, who watches it, to answer that question.
To answer. Well, and this is what I'm saying, is if we want it on an agenda, we're certainly not going to stop a Board of Select member. We're all elected to be the voice of the residents. So if somebody feels that we want to put this on an agenda, I would never stop that. However, I think there will be a lot of pushback. So I think that we need to advertise, put it on there so people that follow us know that they can come and speak about it. But we'll focus on that maybe next year and not tonight.
okay.
All right, so the next thing is, so the secondary treatment cost discussion by the Board of Public Works. The Selectmen asked the Board of Public Works to consider whether they would support spreading out the secondary treatment cost across the entire tax base in Essex. They did have a meeting to talk about it, and they didn't come down firm yet, but they had concerns about doing that. They are more willing to look at what we've done in the past for water projects, which is 70% on the user and 30% on the rest of the town.
What were their concerns?
They feel like that people who pay taxes that aren't necessarily on the water system, that's not a fair way to do it. Whereas the 30% to the taxpayer, that's kind of picking up the cost for town facilities, like we did with the sewer.
So I would say, I need numbers.
So, and
I'm sorry, as a user, I even asked my plumber today, what would it cost to put in so that my outside water isn't on my bill anymore?
yeah, second meter.
And I'm concerned, and I'm understanding that second meter is gonna be not so much a large amount for a second meter, but a large amount for installation and for all of these other things that will have to be taken into consideration. I'm scared. I really am scared. I can't even imagine my water bill being any higher than it is, and mine's pretty low compared to my neighbors when I talk to them. But it's, I just can't imagine. I know there's some people at $1,000 a quarter, and I'm not that high, thank God.
I'm over that.
Yeah. And I mentioned at the last meeting that the sewer system benefited everybody because it got the town back in compliance water quality wise, so that taking all these septic systems out of line and into the sewer allows other septic systems to not overload the soils and the groundwater.
And there were going to be hundreds of tight tanks, which would have been not palatable to anyone who lived in the town.
And
that type of-
also, the reason Essex is stuck paying with the secondary sewer is because of about 20 feet of pipe that it's a technicality. And so the users should not be really stuck because of a court technicality decision, I don't think.
Especially when we're talking something that's been a technicality for 40 years.
Yeah.
Technicality is that we really shouldn't be paying for the secondary sewer. Gloucester should and had the chance to deal with it and should have all along. And I don't think the town of Essex should, but that was ruled differently.
That was the CSO, but the actual secondary treatment, that actually is in the IMA.
okay, yeah.
That is in the IMA. It was the CSO that we argued it's coming off the island, but it commingled with the
yeah.
Essex line,
Yep.
and that's why the judge ruled on it.
Right.
In this case, the original IMA from 2000 said if the treatment plan itself is upgraded to provide it,
Part of the original,
that it was
yeah.
part of the original.
And I really, to me, this is an astronomical amount. And if there's no funding out there, this seems like this should be, it benefits everybody as far as I'm concerned. If we're not putting stuff into the water, then isn't that better, for the whole region, not just for our little area?
So I've had an opportunity to speak with many residents since the last meeting, and these are actually people on septic systems not using sewer. And I said, I need feedback on why we shouldn't spread this amongst the entire tax base and not just do the split. And they make a good point, which is, I said my rationale was that everyone in town pays for the school. And so why shouldn't everyone in town pay for the sewer? And they said, well, because we have, even if we don't have kids, we have an opportunity to use the school. We could adopt, we could foster, we could whatever, but we have the right to use the school. We will never have the ability to use the sewer because they live on Island Road or the end of Lufkin Street or wherever they live that the sewer doesn't go there. And they say, well, if you're going to make me pay for that secondary sewer system, then you better think about how you're going to get that sewer pipe down my street so that I can actually tap into it. And so when they make that argument and they say, when my septic system fails, you're not helping me pay for it. There's no one there to help me spend $30,000 or $50,000 for a new septic system. So having heard those arguments, it does resonate with me that
I don't disagree with them, but at the same time, I know that for those people, are we going to lose people who are on the system? Are we going to,
Because they're gonna have to sell, because it's,
They're gonna have
right.
to sell, they're not gonna be able to afford it. I mean, when I start thinking about the, just for myself, again, who has a relatively low water bill because I have a part-time tenant and myself, I can't even imagine somebody with a family of 5.
So I think I'm with Peter and Alva that we need more numbers. I do have a question, though. It says that the betterment option is not available. Why is that?
They want to save it.
Well, because the property is, there's nothing new happening in front of the property.
So you're not
Or-
taking a loan at a low interest rate?
Well,
because-
it's, your property isn't being bettered because there's more treatment in Gloucester.
Okay.
When the sewer went in, you got a new privilege in front of your house that you could tie into, so you were bettered. It's my understanding that you would have the rate, if you're gonna put most of it on the user, you have to put it on the sewer rate. I don't think you can use a betterment. I can verify that and double check. And I'll also start to run numbers, if it was this way or if it was that way, and talk about it more. But right now, the Board of Public Works is not inclined to recommend spreading it out over the entire tax base.
Right. And they,
Refresh my memory, Brendan, we did not have a choice. The users did not have a choice, right? They had to go on if they were,
You had to pay the betterment, but you did not have to connect unless you had a failed system.
For that case, does this mean those people who have that line in front of them but have not connected? Or is it, you know what I'm saying, like, do they still have to pay? Or like, only those people who connected have to pay?
Well, everyone who had the line go by their house had to pay the betterment.
Correct.
Only those who connected had to start paying a user fee, a sewer fee,
But that's what I'm saying. So-
because you're using the sewer.
so the non-users that paid the betterment, are they gonna be paying for the secondary treatment upgrade?
Not, if you put it on the rate, if they haven't tapped in yet, no, they wouldn't. But see, their property got bettered by having a sewer in front of it. There's a
I
difference.
get that, but I'm talking, so now you're taking, it's not, so like, say it's 900 houses have the betterment in front of their house, but only 600 have actually connected.
Yeah.
That means you're taking that fund of 600, and it's gonna be higher than 70%.
You're correct.
Yeah, that, again, every time I think about these things, I go, oh, well, that adds a little bit more, oh, that adds a little bit more.
Expensive.
Yeah, so let me try to start working with some numbers. This was about just to get the first impression of the Board of Public Works. So they said, no, they don't really want to spread it out, and they also said that we have that interest surplus fund that could be used to soften the blow here, but they're not sure that they want to use it for that, because they can see that being used for just regular things in the system, like when we need a new pump, or when we need to replace a line, or, not to spend that money out on secondary treatment.
but equally, so I have a comment about that, but, so they didn't vote. I talked to,
Right, it was inconclusive, but they were hedging against some of these things.
and they were looking for actually more information that they've not been provided. So I know they were looking for that, but my question's gonna be numbers. How will we increase in numbers per thousand, so that we can, and I also want to do a comparison, if they can get us the numbers of what it would be at the 72% versus, so the user being 72 versus what is the difference to 100%? And then going over to the fund, that one is interesting to me. So it's the users that funded that fund. Those dollars are from people that had betterments, because we were paying.
Not necessarily users, it's people who paid betterments.
And because we thought it was going to be at a 1% betterment, but it was at 0.
No, it's because we were told up front that these loans will be repaid at 0 or less than 0, okay? But the state law allowed the town to charge 2%.
2%.
Or 5%, but the town chose 2%. And so we're actually paying back less than what we borrowed in principal. And all the people paying a betterment at $20,000 a pop are paying 2% to the town. So there'll be probably close to a couple of $1 million as a
So as
surplus.
far as those numbers, because, I mean, I think it's gonna be difficult to figure out dollars and cents exactly, but I'd like to know how many people who are on the betterment lines who are not connected,
Yeah?
and who are connected, because I want to know the numbers of what, if you're taking $1 million a year, what's that going to be divided into? That seems to me like a huge amount.
I think it's 300,000 a year to
300,
Essex,
roughly.
roughly, give or take. So the total project is 209 million, and the cost to Essex will be 300,000 per year over the life of the. Yeah,
20 years.
divided by, right, 20 years, divided by however many
About
users
$6
we
million.
have. Right, it's $6 million to us. So Brendan, my concern about that, so a few years ago when we looked at that balance, as you recall, before they changed the law, we used to actually be able to tap into that sewer loan betterment fund and use it for sewer-related things. And at one point, it was my recommendation
Right.
that we use it to replace all of the grinder pumps at the point when we could. And the Board of Public Works said, well, we don't want to do them all at once. And I think at that
So
time.
they got some money to start that, then it got stopped, and
And then
now
it
they're
got-
using retained earnings.
Because at that point, the state said, you can't use that.
Until your loan is paid off to zero,
Yeah.
you can't touch that surplus. And I'm guessing that some town, they calculated it wrong, and they started using that money, and that money was really to pay the loan back.
So, but my concern there is, and I lived through all of this, but I want to know, they want to save it for sewer-related things, but these dollars came from people that had betterments, but yet we're using it for things like half of a truck that aren't necessarily for sewer users. So I'm more inclined to say, well, if there's $2 million in there, that can help this overall $6 million cost for the users. So it feels like a little unfair if we leave it there for a specific use when this is a major
Right,
cost.
it's a betterment, and you're using it
Yeah, so,
as a vehicle that has nothing to do with the
right.
betterment.
That money can be used for capital items, which a truck would be, or to reduce rates, which means you would entrain some of that money into the
I just think we need numbers at this point, and.
operations.
And maybe where does the
Because the other thing with the
septic
betterment,
system pump out go?
The septic system pump out usually goes to Gloucester.
so I talked, no, it doesn't. It depends on the,
On who's picking it up, right?
I talked to somebody who does that industry.
Most of them always do.
They told me all of Gloucester goes to Gloucester. All my other towns go to Ipswich. So that, to me, I don't know whether or not the other pumping place, people that come to town, where they go, but that was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't gonna say anything, but now it is. So why? So why aren't we going to Ipswich? Aren't they
Maybe
closer?
cheaper for them to go to Gloucester as a Gloucester business?
I think they're required. It's in their bylaws. If you
So
pump out,
maybe Ipswich is cheaper than Gloucester.
I'm assuming.
Go there, yeah.
Isn't that the way it usually works, is somebody's
All right, so
usually
I can get numbers for your next meeting and look at, I'll rule out, I'll verify that there can't be a betterment process, okay? And then I will look at, if that's truly off the table, and I think it is, you're talking about a mix of rate funding versus tax funding. And I'll run it at the 7228 and try to give you a basic idea of what that would break down to. And I'll run it at, if you put it out over the taxes, what would that change, what would that be on your tax rate?
And then let's also take the fund balance in this sewer betterment fund. Let's look at what that is, somewhere probably in the vicinity of over $2 million. Let's take that off over the life of the loan, the $6 million that we owe, deduct the $2 million that's in there, take the $4 million that we would owe, and let us know what that would look like as well.
Yeah, I'm just, like with the betterment, when if I went to sell my house, I could pay off the betterment right then and there, and then the next owner doesn't have to worry about that betterment. We don't have this option when we're talking about, hey, you're connected, and by the way, here's what your sewer rate's gonna be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
I'll look at all
So a
that.
lot of info coming back. Great.
And, we're way out ahead of this. We're talking about, I think they said fiscal '27, right? Fiscal
Yeah, I think
'27.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
it's,
can I ask for one more look into, and that is comparing other towns that are on sewer, what their rate is? Because if our rate is gonna be,
our rate's the highest in the state, because Gloucester is the second highest, and we actually
Pay more.
have to pay to operate our system, plus we pay Gloucester's rate, albeit a wholesale rate now, but when you factor in the CSO, that's completely offset, so. All right, the next thing is the roadway resurfacing contract. The Department of Public Works puts this out periodically, and there were 4 bidders that went from the lowest bidder, EJ Paving, $137,000, all the way up to DNR Paving, $168,000. The Board of Public Works will sign off on this after you do. There is a little over $500,000 in Chapter 90 money available, and so there are sufficient funds available for this project.
Perfect. I will entertain a motion to award the roadway resurfacing contract in the amount of $137,797.50 to EJ Paving.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So there's 4 copies to sign. And pass that around. The next item is, since the dredging hopefully will be starting this fall and winter, bids are not opened until August 20, so we don't know yet for sure whether we're going to have someone that bids and that the bid is within budget. So there's 4 copies there. We are going to have to move 27 mooring blocks to be out of the way of the dredging. Now, of course, we will wait to make sure there's going to be a project before we have anyone move mooring blocks. But
So we are able to wait? We don't have to sign this and be locked in? That was my concern.
I'm asking you to authorize it, but I'm going to hold off giving them a notice to proceed unless and until.
Are all the moorings at Canomo, or are there any in the inner harbor?
I think they vary, but I wasn't on that site visit. They did a very detailed analysis and went up and down the river.
Am I incorrect in thinking, didn't we start with 10 and now you're telling me 27?
We were told that by the harbor master, but then when he went out on a site visit, he changed the number to a higher number.
And actually, the Army Corps of Engineer identified 28 of them, and it was the harbor master that said, I don't really believe we're going to be at 28. I actually think we'll be closer to 10 or 15. And then when they went out there and they pointed them out, we came out at 27. So it did start around this number.
So what I'm at, go
They
ahead.
probably need room to move their barges in and out, even if they're not dredging right there.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So I'm just asking for the board to say, okay, fine, we're gonna, if we need it, we're gonna hire this company. It's less than $10,000. It's a company that knows the river well, so we don't need to have competitive quotes. And the cost of $350 that will be borne by the mooring holder includes the removal and then the replacement of the block when the project is done.
I will entertain a motion to sign the contract with Essex Bay Mooring after a reserve fund transfer is arranged by the harbor master to move the necessary funding into his budget for the removal and replacement of 27 moorings for the dredge project, should it happen.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is an update which just came out over the weekend, and you have that in the package that I handed out at the meeting tonight. It's from Brian Barbary, which I sent via the email.
Yep.
Basically, he's saying that he is narrowing down clusters of parcels and title chains, and he has a real plan. At the very beginning, it was this nebulous, we've got all this work to do. He's gone through $3,000, $1,000 at a time, and he's given you this report. So really what I need to know is whether you want to go for another 1,000, because he says that between now and December, he thinks he can conclude at least one of these clusters and kind of have that wrapped up and then move on. Let's see, he says...
He laid it out really well.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for BZ?
Oh,
No.
And the cost is still similar to what it has been previously?
Well, I
So-
think we would just authorize just another 1,000 if we're interested.
Yeah,
but
1,000
let's-
at a time.
And let's not forget, town council told us it was going to be upwards of $100,000 to get this uncovered.
Yeah, so
He's
even
done a
if-
lot of work for 3,000.
Even if it costs you $10,000 at the end of this, right, that's 10%. the 90% saving.
I just like having a report to know that our money is being spent and we are getting the work.
Right.
It was very good to read all of that.
Yes.
So
And have
I
all of the
appreciate that.
files.
But
No,
he is meticulous. I mean,
And I guess my only other thing is, what's the next step? So if everybody on these properties are deceased and nobody, the trust didn't move to somebody else, what's our
then
next
the next
option?
step is to take it by tax title. So then our treasurer collector would file with the Salem Registry of Deeds, and we would take it by
but we
tax title.
can't do that unless we can make an argument that we know who
We
the
know
owner is.
right.
Which hopefully would be wrapped up through his research, and then it becomes the town's, you know.
I will entertain a motion to approve another $1,000 to continue the research for the parcel unknown, or owner unknown parcels on Southern Ave with Brian Barbary.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so now, for the first time, you're starting to look at the next town meeting. I have a list of potential town meeting articles for the November 18th fall town meeting, which I'll bring back at each one of your meetings until the board decides to sign the warrant, which will be in October. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this yet, but it looks like the floodplain bylaw is coming.
Help me understand, so, because I know that you have a process here and I don't know it. The first section, fall town meeting, these are definites that you're keeping or not?
These are things.
These are
Top priorities.
top priority that we're going to go through right now, and if you have questions, comments, concerns, we're going to bring them to his attention. We might move them to annual town meeting, we could move them to second tier, third tier, we could say get rid of them all together.
Okay.
So I'm sure you have notes all over yours like I do on mine.
I don't, because I'm like, wait, why do we need to purchase all these things? I stopped there.
BZ, do you want to say anything else, or do you want to just take feedback?
No, I'll just take the feedback.
Okay. So I'm going to start, Peter, do you have comments?
I just was wondering, Brendan, on the green crab, we've been doing that in the spring, and we wanted to change it to the fall? Or is it the other way around?
The green crab, they've been late in coming out with the
funding comes
funding.
now.
No, well, the funding has been coming out in the fall.
Yeah,
Sometimes so late that it's already kind of past the season.
yeah,
We still do have matching money that can be used at any time as long as they're within their state permit.
yeah.
And I think there's 10,000 still left in that fund.
Okay, so we still have funding available.
We do, and the last time we did, well, we just closed out, June 30th, we closed out the latest round of state funding.
Right.
And we didn't even spend it all, because there's only one person that's willing to even do trapping right
Okay,
now.
all right.
And that person came back to me and said, I'd like to go after the town money. And I said, that's fine, if you want to, as long as it's within the trapping season that's set by the state.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start at Fall Town Meeting, November 18th, 2024, second line down, purchase new police cruiser. Can we confirm that the vehicle that they are looking to give up is the pickup truck? That's going to be my first question. Or actually, I should have started with the new fire tanker truck, which is number one. I just want to acknowledge that the fire department has applied for a tanker grant, so they're hoping to be able to get a tanker and not bring this, but we won't know that yet, so we're going to leave that alone.
Right.
So I want to confirm that the police cruiser that we're getting rid of is the pickup truck. That's going to bring me into the next thing. If you go down a little further, it talks about the purchase of a Shellfish Constable truck. So if in fact we're getting rid of the police pickup truck, I'm curious about the ability to repurpose that to the Shellfish Warden truck, because as we know, the Shellfish Warden truck takes quite a beating going near salt water.
Right.
And I know that it's not really worthy of a police department vehicle, but I'm not so sure that it's not worthy of being a Shellfish Warden vehicle. So that would be one question.
And we did get the truck on the road again for one more year, but
Right.
who knows what it's going to look like next time around.
Right, but by the time you go through Fall Town Meeting for funding of another vehicle and they actually give it up,
Right,
it's
yeah.
a year later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that we've been successful in doing is that at the last town meeting, we successfully voted to purchase a new 50/50 water sewer truck, and the pickup truck that the DPW is going to be giving up is actually going to the fire department, so we're sharing municipal vehicles. And I'm wondering if, in fact, instead of buying a new Shellfish Constable truck, if the police vehicle doesn't work, if maybe the next time the DPW gives up a vehicle, we could repurpose the DPW vehicle to the Shellfish Warden. So that was just another comment there. Down, funding for purchase of additional accounting system licenses. How many do we currently have, and how many are we proposing to purchase?
Right now, we have, I believe, 5, and it's just the financial team. So we have the treasurer, collector, and her assistant, that's 2. We have 3 people in accounting, that's 5. And I think maybe 1 in the assessing office. It's 5 or 6. This was a discussion that I was having with the chair of the finance committee. You know, does it make sense to get department heads licenses, not to alter or edit the system, but be able to view their budgets and what the system can provide? That would be another, dozen or so.
So are we talking so that the finance committee and others could have access to this data? Do we know what the
Department
license?
heads, finance committee members.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, I mean, so it's not for that general public, it would be for,
No.
but it would be for non-edit abilities.
Right, and so there would be credentials given to people that would be going in to just view the system, that's right. Town officials and employees.
Yeah, so, and I don't know, did you get a chance to talk to the vendor to see what the cost would be?
No, because this is just a preliminary idea, but I can get that as a next step.
Well, and I guess my question would be, and this would be more of a question for the finance committee as well as Michaela, is Michaela just started. She doesn't even have a year under her belt, and the finance committee just rolled out the sneak peek of the possible 2-line system. So I don't know how many changes are going to be made. We might want to, we can leave it there as a placeholder until we speak with finance committee and Michaela, but this might be something for a year from now when we know how we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
Because right now she's providing departments a report so
Yep.
that they can
Could
see.
always ask the vendor if they have some, because other towns have to have something like this. So in some cases, it could be, here's a view that is a view that it doesn't, it's a
Well,
minimal.
we already are providing department heads and finance committee members with reports. Those are free, right? This is the ability of the person to go in and
They
look
want
on their
last
own.
minute. They want to be able to log in and look at last minute. I don't know the vendor or what they offer, but there could be an ability for a slimmed down view so that you can still see the data,
Right.
but you're not, like you
Yeah.
said, it's not going to.
Yeah, it's a read, is there a read-only license,
Right.
basically?
My concern would be if the finance committee felt that they deserved the right to be able to go in and manipulate. No,
No, that would be beyond, that would be against good financial control
correct.
policy. So this was just an idea that came up, and I said I'd bring it to the selectmen's attention. I can certainly get the pricing, whether or not you implement it. And if they say, well, it's, $3,000 a year per license, then I guess we're not doing
So
it.
is this something that would have to go on town meeting? It would?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Well,
spending
you would-
money.
Yeah.
You would have to, you would, if you wanted to do it right away, you would have to actually amend the budget, because that software line is only accommodating the licenses we have now.
Okay.
If you liked the idea, but you weren't going to go until some new fiscal year, you could build that into the budget. But it's still a town meeting vote,
Right, okay.
new or amended.
So next for me is possible adoption of prudent investor rule that would allow the treasurer to consider additional investment options for stabilization in trust funds. Can you just give that to me in English?
Yes. Right now, the treasurer really has a limitation on funds that I've shown, stabilization, and trust funds, because they're public funds and there can't be a high degree of risk. There have now been new rules that would allow the treasurer to broaden the types of things that they could put the money into.
Is that with approval?
What's that?
Is that with approval? So I'm the treasurer, I decide, I'd like to put it into his company. Or is it you know, you have to get approval.
The treasurer as an officer, if this gets broadened, would have the ability to make those decisions. Now, the reason it's on here is not because we're saying, hey, let's do this. It's because it's a brand-new thing that just became available. And so you might like it, you might not like it. I think that Brooke said that she would write up something for you on what it is, what are the pros and cons.
That, I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love pros and cons, and I would love to know about her feeling on her own potential liability. I realize that she's a town employee that, you know, is indemnified, but I would like to know what the threshold of risk is and what she feels that her ability to choose potential investment options are. I mean, I don't know that her background is in investing, so more info would be great on that. So going down to additional sewer free cash funding for grinder pump installations, is this something that's coming out of their enterprise fund, or are they looking for free cash for
We're
this?
talking about what they call, it's their free cash, which is called retainer, not general free.
Not general free cash. So it's coming out of their own,
Yeah,
basically their own fund that they have from the user. Okay.
correct.
Next is, if you can just explain for me the review of the FLSA exempt employee minimum salary rule with respect to the salaried employees.
So there may be a change in, there has been a change in law that may or may not survive legal challenges that says you can only call somebody a salaried employee if they're making some minimum amount of money per year. You can't say, oh, you're our, you know, whatever, and we're going to pay you $15,000 a year. You have to pay them hourly if you're going to do that.
Okay.
We have one employee, the shellfish constable, that may fall below that threshold, but it doesn't happen until January 1st. And between now and then, there could be legal challenges, because they have proposed this before, and it has been successfully challenged.
Can I just ask you, since you did say the shellfish constable, do they work year-round?
Yes. Yeah, full-time, yep. So here, I have it on here as a placeholder because if that happens, there's a possibility you would just have to vote to increase the salary to the minimum.
What is the minimum?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, no worries.
I'll get you that, yeah.
Is it like 50 or like?
It's somewhere in that neighborhood.
It is,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so the next one for me is new because it's a 10-year agreement and I wasn't on the board, so I would love an explanation. It says renew authorization for 10-year successor leases for town land benefiting Shays, Riverside, and for the lease of the Legion property to the Museum or Historical Society, which I was here for the property for the Museum and Historical Society, but not the land benefiting Shays, Riverside.
Well, the last time this was done was in 2015. It goes for, they each go for 10 years. So that's why we're coming up on it.
Interesting, because I was here when we voted on the, maybe it was just a discussion about that with the Finance Committee
Yeah, I
about
don't-
wanting to charge a regular rental fee. But-
Yeah, I think it was just a discussion because they've always been at the same time.
So is Shays blocked from passing to their docks? What is this
A
rental?
corner of the Shays Restaurant is actually on a piece of that land that we would call the town landing there, Woodman's Beach.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay? A small piece of that building sits on town property
Oh,
for
okay.
10 years at a
So
time.
it's pre-existing non-conforming structure
Yeah.
sitting on our land?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And
and-
so every time it comes up, which last time was 10 years ago, I put it on the radar because the town meeting actually has to vote because these are leases, these are not licenses.
Right.
So, answer me this. When is the actual 10 years up?
It is, I believe, at the end of the coming this fiscal year, which means June 30th.
And that's, so for me, where it's in flux of what they're doing, would we sign it for fall town meeting, or would we wait till spring's town meeting because
Oh, to know who the new owner is on
to
the,
know who
on
the
the
new
lease
owner
agreement?
is? They may
Right.
build something that's not on that land. They may build something that's further on that land, and we need to make an adjustment.
Yeah, true.
And where did you see this on the list? In the,
In the next
Next
page.
page.
yeah, so it's already on the annual.
That's
Oh,
on the.
right, yes, Alva, we're at annual. So that would be in the spring.
Oh, pardon me, so
Nope,
sorry.
my fault, I didn't announce. Okay.
All right, thank you, BZ,
Yeah.
that explains a lot.
What else?
So next is under second tier, the very first thing, review fire department staffing situation and future needs. So this one, I'm going to talk about for a moment. I want to start by actually thanking Cam Ellis, who's been on our department for about 4 years. He is leaving for Alaska on Thursday. He's going into the Air Force, and we will probably not see him other than visits for the next 4 years at a minimum. He's been an amazing asset to our department and our community, and it's going to be difficult to lose him because he does most of our medical calls, as well as losing Connor Bell, who is also an Essex resident. He's also leaving us, so that's going to be a little bit of a hit with our EMS staff. Connor Bell is going into the National Guard or Army.
Army? Oh, yeah, right.
So we're losing 2 guys to the military, which great for them, bad for us. So in talking to, Peter will recall this, and Alva, this may be new for you, or I'm sure you've heard about it. In my time on the board, we've had the fire department come to us several times, and even before me, looking for full-time staff. And every time they come, we basically beg them, not now, not now. We are a call department. This will be detrimental, and we know that right now we're saving about $1 million a year by having a call department. And we don't really ever want to endeavor into this. So the reason I'm talking about this is that although we've been pushing them off, and they've done it graciously, and they continue to show up and, perform the job, we are at a crossroads where most of the guys, I call them the old guys. So the old guys are all aged currently at between 57 and 59. And in the next 5 to 6 years, 7 tops, we are going to be moving to a full-time department. So we have to cross this in a strategic way. My feeling is that we start getting very serious about moving this to first tier and talking about 1 full-time employee. That would not be a chief necessarily. It would be something like a fire prevention officer that would help with administrative tasks. The reason for this thought process is that it's about, I guess, approaching it strategically and so that it doesn't hurt as bad. If we wait and in 6 or 7 years, we say we're a full-time department and now it's $1 million and we have at least 4 full-time people, that's going to hurt. If we do it now and they're not full-time, unionized members, we're going to dip our toe in. We're going to do it slowly. We're going to get away with this for a couple of years with 1 person. And this model, it was very successful in Hamilton. It's actually still a model that they use today, but that's how they started, with 1 full-time person, and they kept all of their other call guys. Over time, they've employed more full-time people, but their full-time staff works Monday through Friday. It's not like the police work with, 24-hour shifts and things like that. So I'm strongly recommending that we get serious about finding out what the job description or what the title would be.
What the best type of position?
What the best type of position is. What is the title? What is the job description? What is the salary? How do we make this work for the town so that we can... So anyway, so that's kind of my spiel about why I think it's important to be serious about this and not continue to put this off.
So do you think annual or fall?
Well,
Is it developed enough for the fall?
it's probably not developed enough for fall. It probably needs to go on annual, but fall is when we talk about wage and salary scale. So if nothing else, we might need to work with the fire department to come up with a title to get it onto the wage and salary scale to
Right.
then develop a job description in the hiring process. So it's something to think about. So let's not even talk about it tonight. Go home, think about it, talk to people about what they think their needs are, and then we'll bring it back at the next meeting when we get the next
And I think
list.
that's what I would need is, I think I would need, and then I know that you're more involved in it than most of the public in town, the why. Why do we need this? If we did it in a tier thing, what is the position? What do you see it looking like?
Well, I think
Because
that would be what
we don't have the buildable place. If we know that, yes, this is how much growth we're gonna have over the next 10 years, this is why it's good to start with this tier.
Sure.
Then that makes a lot of sense to do it slowly.
I also think we're going to be getting a report from, is it BU that's doing the report for the Council on Aging? Is it BU or BC?
UMass Boston.
UMass Boston. UMass Boston is going to be rolling out the report on the Council on Aging and the aging population and what the senior needs are. I can tell you that our medical calls have increased. What we could possibly do, if you're interested, is bring the fire department in at our next meeting. We could give them an appointment and have them come with some stats. We could reach out to the chief, have him bring in EMS calls. And I say EMS because I know that with an aging population, we see a lot more ambulance calls. But we could have him come in with numbers. We can talk about what the needs are, why there's a need. We could talk about the average age of the guys. So with the fire service, there's a mandatory retirement at 65. The day you turn 65, you are done. So that's going to, we could list them. We know who they are. But there's our top probably 6 or 7 guys that will be done at the same time.
I do think we have to figure out a way of, even if it's a volunteer department that we continue to have, or some aspect, getting them, making sure that forget the older residents, we have to get the younger ones involved in it.
Well, and that's why I wanted to thank Cam and Connor, is that what we're seeing is that this older population of our volunteers on the fire department are going to be forced retired. And then all of our younger guys aren't here. They can't afford to stay in town. They can't afford to live here unless they're with their family. And the guys that are living here with family are going off to the service. And we don't have a lot of younger guys stepping up. We have a handful, don't get me wrong. We have a great group of younger kids, but you can't run the fire department with 3 or 4 young kids that don't even work in town. They're not going to be there for the calls. So, and if you put the full-time day person on the day shift, Monday through Friday from 8 to 4 or whatever it is, that's going to fill the gap for the guys that do work out of town. By the time they roll back into town after their shift, they can respond to calls. But the Monday through Friday, we don't have a lot of economy in town. We don't, if you're not working in a restaurant, we do have our blue collar guys that are electricians and plumbers that work through Essex or around, but they're not necessarily like Ernie. When Ernie retires from Ernie's Garage, he's not going to be 4 buildings over to run to every single call.
Right. So are we talking about a medical full-time position, or is that just something that you're bringing up that's needed?
So
we don't know what
the need is. I mean, we're talking about fire prevention. I'm sure that one of the requirements would be that they're firefighter 1-2 certified, that they're an EMT, and that they would go to the fire prevention class. So they would have the ability to do smoke detectors and CO alarms for real estate sales. They would be able to respond to ambulance calls. They would be able to do, say, payroll. They would be able to order the supplies, or for the ambulance. They would be able to do truck checks every day. So there's a whole list of chores that get done every day.
Department needs,
Right.
regardless of whether it's a volunteer forever or not. Yeah.
Correct. And then there's also the potential offset, and again, this is where the department needs to come and talk about this, but there's a potential financial offset, which is that currently we staff the department, we staff it Monday through Friday days, 8 to 4 with 2 guys. It doesn't mean that they're available, but for the guys that, for instance, we have a full-time Winchester firefighter who works 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, and then 5 days off. On his 5 days off, he'll come and pull up what we call station coverage. So he comes in and he'll do a day. We have a couple of guys that work over in Manchester as full-time firefighters. On their days off, they come do station coverage. And that's Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. They're being paid to be there anyway. But if you were to put on a full-time person, you would save at least one of those salaries. And so there is some, not that it's cost savings, but I guess it would be reallocated to help fund the position, so it wouldn't be the full nut. So it's
And just remember, any full-time position comes with a 20,000 plus
benefits
benefit
package,
right.
sure.
So,
Well, and it's not just benefits, it's the pension. I mean, it's a big nut to chew, but is it going to be something we swallow in little increments, or are we going to swallow it all at once? So that's
is
just
this
all I'm saying.
Essex?
Yeah, I know. Well, all at once. That is your answer. Yes, I agree. So think about it. Let's sleep on it. Do you think it would be prudent to invite the fire chief and maybe the deputies to talk about it?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So if you want to put it on your list, but I will also reach out to Ramey. And do you want to, let me actually reach out to Ramey and see what time is good for him to come, and then we'll make an appointment. Okay. Another thing that I want to bring back to the, actually, next on the list is consider instituting a harbor river use fee to help defray future dredging costs. This is something that we talk about year after year after year, and I know the harbor master was looking into it. Well, Tina Lane so graciously forwarded me an email about the harbor use fees in Manchester, and that is so well laid out that I will have Brendan circulate that to the board and maybe even to Danny, so we could talk about doing that, because that could be hugely helpful and financially beneficial.
That paid for the private dredging, yeah.
Right. Next is a notation on here that it's not actually printed, it's just something I want to bring back to the board's attention. So the board may recall that in March of this year, the meeting after we voted in favor of the budget that the Finance Committee recommended, we received a letter from the Canoma Point Association President, Craig Markowitz, and they had put together a letter requesting 3 different things of the board. One was that we redeploy the trash barrels, which we successfully did. One was that we consider putting a lifeguard on duty, and the third was that we pay for a porta potty down at Canoma Point in the summers. So those would all need to be, so the trash barrels is a done deal. The lifeguard and the porta potty thing would need to be funded. So the reason I'm bringing our attention back to this is I don't know if there's a creative way to talk about this, but we do make a lot of money off the leases at Canoma Point, and they don't generally ask for a lot of things. We make about $600,000 a year from the Canoma Point leases. It's a large chunk of money to the town of Essex. We don't get a lot of requests down there. I know that we shouldn't separate them from Canoma Point versus Essex. We're all one community. But there's not a lot of things we do down there. We don't, we're not out there maintaining their parking area. We're not cleaning their pocket park. We're not weeding their gardens like they've requested.
We do those things.
We do not do those things. They have volunteers do them. We have been asked time and time again to do them, and we're told that we don't have the staff to do that. So we do mow along the seawall, but we don't we don't maintain the parking lot. We don't weed the 2 what were nice little shrubbed garden beds on the sides, the pocket park out, the sitting park on the end. We don't maintain that. That's a volunteer in town. It's a resident that does that. So I did inquire about the lifeguard. I do have their job description in my email, which I can forward. They only employ a lifeguard from July 1st, and they only do it for 8 weeks. It's all of July and all of August. It doesn't feel like a big ask. It would require us putting together a job description, a wage and salary scale, and we would have to do it. What I wanted to ask Brendan was, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I'm curious if we could do something different with this, which would be the possibility of actually having the Canoma Point Association employ a second lifeguard, because they already have a relationship with the kids down there. They already train those kids to be the lifeguards with the program that they already use. I'm wondering if they do the scheduling, they pay the lifeguard and somehow invoice us, like.
Yeah, so that would be a service, and if it's less than $10,000, you don't have to compete.
So I wonder.
Definitely would be.
Yeah.
It would be, and I think that might be a way to go, but would we need to do wage and salary scale to get a number or some line?
No, not if you would put a budget line in that would say, we'd put it in the Canoma Point budget, lifeguard expense, not wage, and we would have to know how much that they think they would need, and you'd fund the line at that much.
So I think it's a small ask. I think we do make a lot of money from the leases, and I think that they're looking for 8 weeks of lifeguards, and they only put the lifeguard on Saturday and Sunday.
Then the
What about the
liability-
porta potty? Would you do the
So
same thing,
There's already
8 weeks?
one down there,
There's one down there.
handicap porta potty
That we pay for?
that we pay for.
Okay.
Where is
Well,
that?
It's up on Canoma Lane
Canoma Lane.
Oh, yes.
in the
Okay.
parking lot.
And it's a good-sized one. I thought about using it the last time I was there,
Okay, so I'll
Why didn't you?
comment back
because I thought I could make it.
Because it's a portable toilet.
because
that's
it's a
why.
porta potty.
She
Okay.
thought about it.
Actually, it was because it was 102 degrees outside, and I decided home would be so much better.
So
I'm with
how does
that.
the board feel about this conversation about the lifeguard?
Sure, yeah.
I think we should get it in writing that they're willing to accept something like that.
So, and I haven't had this conversation with Craig. I've been sleeping on this and trying to think of a way to not make it. My concern with making it a town employee is now we're talking about the training, we're talking about the management, we're talking about the liability. I'm just thinking, how do we shift that so that we're working with them to fulfill their needs, but also to not make it one more thing that Brendan's going to
I'd
manage?
like it defined in
Sure.
paper, so
Are you
we
thinking
understand.
fall or spring?
Well, it wouldn't be until next summer, so
Yeah,
we just
so
need to
the
talk about
Annual.
when we want to fund it.
Right, because if they start on July 1st and our budget starts on July 1st, they could bill us a lump sum for the season on July 1st. So it'd be at the annual, I would say.
Annual.
So
Put it
annual?
into the
Okay,
budget.
so we'll put it into the budget for annual. But we'll still need to talk to the finance committee about getting into the budget.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that'll be written up in my regular budget memo.
okay, so that was everything for me for the annual town meeting.
So let me chew on this and get it all reorganized, and you're gonna see it every meeting between now and October.
Yep.
So can I just go through a couple
Yeah.
of things here? So, the fuel depot, have we made any progress on that of what we're thinking?
Did I miss
There's a
that?
part of me that says, if Ernie sells and it's still a gas station, do we really want to take money away from a town business?
No, well, he doesn't,
Gas.
he has he has only diesel right now, right? I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
He would have had to replace his tanks and stuff like that, so he shut it down for
He
gas.
still has diesel.
Yeah.
He has diesel, yeah.
And is this something that has to be for this fall? I mean, do we have,
No, none of this has to be.
Right.
This is stuff that's been talked about for a while, and so I always refresh it. Some of these things we were thinking about when we did the planning for the annual back in May, and they didn't make the cut, so some of them got, well, let's think about it in the
Right,
fall.
right.
And so they're here again, but it's an idea at this point.
so then even just like I'm looking at the town-owned bridges, are any in such condition that we have to start working on financial, how are we going to pay for these, or?
Well, this is to fund the study to
Yeah, to figure it
determine
out.
what kind of shape they're in and if you need to replace them.
Oh, a study.
It's a
Let me come
study.
with that, the study.
You'd need an engineering firm to do an evaluation.
Okay, do we know the condition, so I'm moving right down, I'm just quickly going through these. The ADA ramp, is this something, a dire need? Are we going to look at rechanging?
This already actually has come with a quote to the town administrator, and it was decided between the library and the finance committee that they would put it off to fall town meeting to fund this, and the quote was under $5,000 to do this work. It was a minimal amount of money to fix this.
Okay. And that's what my feeling is, it's a need.
It's a need.
It's a need that needs
It
to
is.
be addressed.
The boards came off the stringers, where the nails were in the stringers below the,
Yeah, the last time I walked on it, I wasn't very happy.
Spongy.
it's spongy,
Spongy.
yep.
Good word for it. Yeah, that's all really that I had.
These are going to come back every meeting, so we can keep
Yeah.
chipping away at them,
With,
Alva.
with a lot of information about each one too, because you're starting to ask questions and we'll get that. Next thing is the sale of the Allen properties.
We
Oh, wait,
skipped
no.
over the adoption of
Yep.
shellfish.
Okay. The Division of Marine Fisheries reached out to me, the harbor master, and the shellfish constable about modernizing the policies that we're working under now, but getting it all consolidated. And I provided a package of policies to the board in advance, so you could look over it, along with some commentary from one of the employees at DMF, who explained what it is actually doing. You have a, flip to it here, conditional area management plan, which is referred to as the CAMP. And in Essex, it involves criteria for rainfall closures of different shellfish areas, and it also talks about mooring areas and making sure that there isn't shellfishing, the shellfishing is not adversely affected by moored boats that obviously pose a hazard when you're talking about sanitary waste, also fuels. The documents really go through in quite a bit of detail where all the areas are and what happens when you get a certain amount of rain. again, they already have documents that discuss these things, but this is a modernization and a consolidation of that information. There's also a marina and mooring area policy that is new, that they're looking to have the town agree with, because it involves the Shellfish Constable and the Harbor Master cooperating with DMF on a regular basis to inspect these things. But both of those employees don't see that it will be a lot of work, and they are fine with adopting all these policies as recommended by DMF.
I will entertain a motion to adopt the new policies that have been developed by DMF.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we take a 2-minute recess so I can run to the ladies' room?
Yeah. BZ, I did want to just thank you, for asking those questions, because I was, as far as having links to show where other documents are, I
Yep.
think that makes it helpful for the general public when they're trying to understand it. I mean, we know that state and federal regulations are so confusing, and it makes it easier, so
Yep.
thank you.
Nothing really significantly changed in here. It was just
No, it's-
consolidating it all.
There's some
What
tweaking.
exists, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they just, stuff would come out 1 year, and then 3 years later, something else,
Right,
and something
and
else.
now they're
and
just
then
trying to get
putting
it all
together.
together.
Yeah.
And if you read, if you read the digestion that he did, it really is a good summary
Yeah.
of what's happening.
Yeah. I went to print out that hazard mitigation plan, and then looked at it, and it was 200 and something
Oh,
pages.
yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, you're better off just keeping it on the screen.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
All right, so the next is, as the board is aware, the town has taken ownership of 4 parcels that were formerly owned by the estate of Allen. And the town, knowing that there is potentially some environmental contamination on the site, has for a long time now taken the position that when the town got ownership, which has just recently happened, the property should be sold at auction. So it's like an immediate flip of the property, and that keeps the town insulated from environmental contamination down the road. The law about how communities can dispose of property after the tax title process has been completed is changing, and as of November 1, you won't be able to conduct an auction. I'm recommending that the board move ahead with an auction prior to that. I think it would be early to mid-October, and dispose of these properties. There is a auction company that we've worked with before called the Zikos Group. This would involve town council helping to provide us with the flow of events, I believe there's a notice of sale that town council has to come up with that we send to the former owner at least 2 weeks in advance of the auction. We have to post this notice in certain locations in town. The auction company, Zikos Group, is going to put a proposal together that you can look at your next meeting. And we've already provided them with information on the properties and the 2 environmental studies that were done, one by DEP and one by a private group in the past. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention so that you understood that, now is the time to act. Because just to advertise it properly and promote it properly, Zikos is saying he needs September to do that, and October would be the auction, but we would still beat the November deadline.
Yeah.
So I will entertain a motion to move forward with Zikos Group to auction the tax title properties known as the Allen Estate on Southern Ave.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have a habitat restoration grant. Let's flip to that. So the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management contacted the town, and they're going after some federal money from NOAA that would seek to look at environmental restoration in Essex, Ipswich, and Gloucester. In Essex, we're talking about one site that's down adjacent, well, it's, I believe Andrew Spinney owns the right-hand side of the end of Lufkin Street, and then I'm not sure about the left-hand side as you tee into Harlow Street.
Yeah.
But there is a vernal pool to the right, and there's actually a stream that's impeded from one side of the street to the other. The crossing is the only thing that would be worked on. We're not talking about working on private property. So the people from CZM are asking whether we support, at least looking at that, it would be a design, it wouldn't be implementation. In addition, very importantly, the same grant proposal would look at the crossing underneath Route 133 at the Ipswich-Essex line, Castle Neck River, which would be a great lead-in to communicating with the DOT, because we're going to have to develop a process with them when it comes to the causeway. So it's not exactly on point with the major issue, but it's still someone else, a state agency, working to push for, hey, what are you going to do here?
And the opening downstream of that is most likely going to happen, the opening of the culvert.
The one that comes underneath Old Essex Road is going to happen, but then you have to get under 133 to get to that big
to the other side.
wetland in the back.
Yeah.
I will entertain a motion to support CZM's efforts to secure funding through the NOAA grant.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, I'll let them know, and let's see. Now, the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization, known as the MPO, has, as I told you before, they did a survey, then they did an interview, and from that interview, they actually contacted the town back to say, hey, we're very interested in this issue that you're dealing with, which is how are you going to deal with the causeway in the future as flooding becomes more and more common? And I mentioned before, I think I mentioned already, that they are looking at doing some traffic study for us right away, and then writing up a scope of services that would be for a project that hopefully they're going to get funding for, federal funding, that would really analyze the problem and what some potential solutions might be. And that would be something that would, again, start engaging the DOT. So
But they've gotten back to you saying they're definitely gonna do the traffic counts on.
They're definitely going to do the traffic counts on the Causeway and on Apple Street as the alternative pathway. And they're definitely going to put together the scope that would say, this is what should be in a study of the Causeway. We're going to get those two things.
Yep.
It's whether or not they're going to be able to fund it with their own money, although they're optimistic there. That wouldn't be until October. So, this is all being written up in the revised hazard mitigation plan, which is the next item, the final item on my report. That draft final document now is referencing the treatment we're getting from DOT and from the MPO. It's also going to reference the CZM work that I just talked about, albeit down at Castle Neck River, but it's still responsive to the overwhelming comment that we got, which was, okay, Apple Street is kind of gone by now, what are you gonna do with the Causeway? We have things to actually put in the hazard mitigation plan that address those comments, and hopefully, it's not just we're gonna look at it in the future, we're actually gonna be able to show people something in the near term. If you have comments on the draft final version of the hazard mitigation plan, get them to me as soon as possible, because the next step is MAPC will send that document to MEMA. MEMA has about a 30 to 45-day turnaround time. If they have any comments, we have to revise the draft again. Then it goes to FEMA, which is a 60 to 90-day turnaround time. If there are comments on that, we revise it again. And then once we're in line with FEMA's wishes, that comes back to the board for final adoption, and then 5 years from now, we do it all over again.
So my concern, anytime somebody does studies, they always seem to give us more money, cost us more money, and like some of these studies on the roadway, could they increase the speed? Could they, I'm trying to understand what other things could come from it that isn't just related to the flooding issues or?
No, I mean, this is exclusively to look at,
Yeah, they
Here's the
put some rubber
problem.
things on the road and count.
yeah, that,
Pretty basic.
yeah. They're getting an update on throughput, because the last time they did that was several years ago. And then once they have that, they're using that to say, hey, this is an important regional corridor. And now we're gonna study this, because what's gonna happen in the future? I mean, you got 128 if Apple Street is in, that's not a really good solution.
And we studied it for the replacement of the bridge, and at that point, we had 16,000 cars a day going over the old rickety bridge. Now that people know that the bridge is new and replaced, who knows what that number looks like daily? It's a lot of cars a day.
So I say this is actually a way to key into what most of the commenters, the public, had to say about it, which is, okay, you tried something, it's not working out. Really, what is the state's plan for the Causeway? We've gotten someone's attention, and they're, I think it's only beneficial, however. I don't see any hidden costs here.
Is there any public comment online? If you have public comment, please unmute yourself, state your name and address, and we will take that public comment at this time. Okay. Having no public comment, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:38 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.